And, you know, we've been going since 2017. And for those who haven't been on Guyana Speaks before, we're always on the last Sunday of every month. We also run special events. So, for example, we've got an event on Monday, the 8th of March, which commemorates the death of Andrew Watson, who was an international Black football player. He played for the nation of Scotland, and he died on, well, he died 100 years ago on the 8th of March in 1921. And he's Guyanese. His father was Scottish and his mother was of Guyanese ancestry, we believe from Demerara. And so we've got 3 speakers and they're all going to be focusing on different areas. We'll be talking about the links between Scotland and Guyana. And I think we've got David Alston actually online today for this event, but he's, as you know, a specialist who's been researching the connections between Scotland and Guyana for, I think now about 20 years, probably more. So he'll be on. We've also got Lil Walker, who's, I've probably pronounced his name incorrectly, but he's recently published a book on Andrew Watson, and he's sort of more interested in the football side. So if there's any football fans out there, he's going to be talking about the importance of Andrew Watson and his role within football. And then we've also got Malik Al-Nazir, who is currently researching Andrew Watson and the family that's connected to that. So his research follows the Watson family and all their relatives through to the Robertson, who were a Scottish family that had huge financial interests in Demerara in particular, and also they're connected to Sandbach Tinny. So yeah, I think it's something that will be of real interest to everyone from the Guyanese community. So please do sign up for that, and I'll put the details in the link there. And then in today's lineup, just so you're aware, we're going to start with Stacey Dos Santos-Rahaman. And then we're going to go on to a pre-recorded clip. It's a conversation between Wayne McWatt and Egbert Carter. Wayne very kindly stepped in for us because most of you who know Wayne McWatt will know that he's got an extensive knowledge of the architecture of Guyana. So we thought they'd make a really good pairing and have their conversation together. And then
went on mute, Juanita.
Please make sure you put yourselves on mute. And then, so I'm going to put in a PayPal connection in here for Khadijatou if you want to support her as an artist. I think most of us are aware that during lockdown and with COVID, a lot of artists are really kind of, well, they don't have their normal venues to go and perform. So in appreciation, you may want to donate to that. I know as well that she's going to be, she's got CDs that you can purchase. So she'll tell us a bit more about that at the end. But if we can firstly have Stacey. So I'm just going to introduce Stacey, and then we can go from there. So Stacey Dos Santos-Rahaman is the co-owner of Krista Marketing Solutions. She's also the co-founder of the award-winning Visit Guyana Travel and Tourism brand, and co-founder and publisher of the award-winning Visit Guyana Lime, Dine and Unwind, and Visit Guyana Travel magazines. She's a graduate of the University of Guyana with a degree in computer science and specializes in marketing, with her core speciality being social media marketing. She has served on the board of the National Parks Commission and the Guyana Tourism Authority. I just want to talk about the birth of Visit Guyana. So Stacey decided to set up the Visit Guyana Facebook page in 2016 in order to kind of counter the negative online portrayals of Guyana. And so she, along with her partner, set off on a kind of a mission to capture photos and stories of Guyana, with the main objective being to show it off to the world. And also all that made Guyana kind of unique and special. So their Facebook page has gained over, I mean, I think when they initially set it up, it gained over like 10,000 fans in about 4 months. And then it went on to win 2 awards from the Guyana Tourism Authority. So she had, for example, the, I think it was a Destination Guyana promotion in 2013. And there was also the Best in Tourism Supporting Services of 2019. And the Visit Guyana magazine also won a Guyana Tourism Award in 2016 for Tourism Entrepreneur of the Year. So, you know, the Visit Guyana Facebook page and Instagram pages are still managed by Stacey and her team, and they currently boast over 250,000 fans and 54,000 fans respectively. And I really encourage you to join her Facebook pages if you haven't already, because it really is so insightful. I've learned so much just by following Stacey, just also in terms of her positivity. The people who are really so negative about Guyana, and it really comes from a position of maybe a lack of knowledge, or people have been in the diaspora too long. Guyana is ready for tourism, and I cannot wait to have Stacey sharing her information with us. But I also just wanted to mention that apart from her professional portfolio, Stacey's a mother of 2. She's a firm believer in youth empowerment and promoting entrepreneurial culture and small business development. She uses her platform to regularly promote and mentor Guyanese startup brands and businesses. So Stacey, we're really very grateful to have you here with us today. And I'd ask you to come on and share with us what you'd like to share. And also just unmute yourself. I think you're currently on mute, so please do unmute yourself.
Yes, I am. Thanks so much, Anita, for that wonderful introduction. I'm so honored to be here, and everybody who is participating, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that I can leave you with a little bit of knowledge and some inspiration for your next trip to Guyana. As Vanita said, Visit Guyana is really all of a platform to promote everything positive about Guyana. We may not always get it right, but we definitely, our objectives and motivation is to present to the world the best that Guyana has to offer. So in this presentation, I'm going to attempt to show off a bit about Guyana, as well as share some knowledge about where we are with regards to travel post-COVID. Well, not really post, because COVID is still here, but, and I welcome your questions as well. I'm actually gonna start off by showing you a video just to get everybody in the Guyana mood, right? And then I'm gonna go straight into the presentation. So Anita, once again, thank you so much for having me on. I'll just bring the video up and share screen, just a second. All right, can everybody see my screen? Just check in.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Here it goes.
Stacey, should there be any sound?
Yes, are you hearing anything?
No, we're not hearing anything. When you go into sharing it, you may need to click on the bottom where it says share your computer sound if you're doing it on your computer.
Yeah, I'm doing it on my computer. Just a second.
So I think you have to come out from the screen share, and then when you click back on sharing it, there's a thing at the bottom left-hand bit that says share computer sound.
I'm gonna try that. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Strange. Let me try this again.
I think you have to come out of the.
Okay, I got it.
Oh, you've got it? Oh, great.
Got it. Let me try this again.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Yes, so I just wanted to start with this video to sort of get everybody, as I mentioned before, in that Guyana mood, and just to remind everybody visually of what Guyana has to offer. It's such a diverse, culturally diverse country, and that experience the travelers get here is what makes it special. So I hope you guys enjoyed that piece. I'm just going to bring up the presentation and we'll go straight into that.
Nice video though, Stacey. Do you produce them all yourselves?
I'm sorry?
Do you produce the video yourself?
Yes, we did do that video ourselves. So
do you have like a camera team that works with you, or?
I actually did this one on my own, but we do have a videographer who does, you know, the more professional videos and the more professional shoots with all the drones and so on our team, we do have our videographer. We do have writers as well. I believe one of our contributing writers is joining us, Karina. But for our magazine, we do have persons that we work with, a team of people. Okay. So let me just stop this here and then I'll start it back. Just give me a second.
No worries.
Right. Can everybody see that now?
Can you just let us know in the chat if you're seeing, if you're actually seeing this? Because I noticed that some people have put in the chat that there was zero sound. But it seems like it's all good for most people. Okay, that's great.
Okay,
so you can.
Perfect.
Yeah,
so we'll get ready. So I'm not gonna, just a second. Yeah, so I'm gonna skip the first slide because Juanita would have already introduced the Visit Guyana brand and what we do. So I'm just gonna go straight into the presentation. I look forward to your questions afterwards. So Juanita mentioned to me that she didn't want the focus to be primarily on Kaieteur Falls because most people would have been familiar with that. So part of my mandate was to share with you some new tours, emerging tours, as well as some hidden gems that you may not have heard about before. So you would be able to consider these places for your next visit to Guyana, or just to share the information with others as well. So Guyana, home sweet home, whether you have left many years ago, whether you're second generation born Guyanese and you have ties here, Guyana will always be home. So let's continue. So Guyana is recognized as the world's #1 ecotourism destination. This was in 2018, we won that award, but we're still recognized for it. We also won awards for the best in sustainable tourism, and we were in the top 10. We were the top 10 sustainable destination list in 2019. So we've had quite a bit of honors bestowed to Guyana with regards to our tourism products. So it has definitely been growing, and all of the stakeholders have to take credit for all of these wonderful awards that we would have won. Guyana, a lot of people use this phrase to describe us: wonderful land, beautiful people. Of course, we're full of unique experiences that are unmatched anywhere else. Our natural beauty, things that make Guyana unique, of course, one of the main ones is that we're English speaking. We have an abundance of flora and fauna, over 820 species of birds. We have countless rivers, mountains, savannas. Our geography is so diverse, our food, our culture, all of those things combine to present an experience to a visitor that is unlike any that they would have anywhere else. So there's so much that for us to celebrate about this wonderful country of ours. With regards to COVID, that's one of the #1 questions I have. I get, although our airlines are open, it's not open. I know there are restrictions from the UK and so forth. However, for persons who may not be from the UK who are joining us, if you're thinking of travel, you have to get your PCR test within 7 days of travel, and it must be negative. So you have to walk with all your paperwork before you arrive. All of this information, I'm not going to give you all the details, but GuyanaTravel.ui, that has all of the COVID updated information that you would need before making your decisions. And before you travel, our restaurants are open at 40% capacity for indoor dining. Our curfew is 10:30, and there's no pool activity. If you're staying at a hotel when you come, don't expect tour or bar activities happening. All of those fall within our COVID protocols. So that's just some brief information on COVID. Like I said, you can go to GuyanaTravel.ui to get more information on that. Another question I was tasked with is to put up some recommended hotels as well. From Guyana, of course, we have recognizable international brands, as well as lots of local, well-appointed boutique hotels. We have river resorts. We have our Rupununi Eco Lodges. So wherever you want to travel across Guyana, there are great options for accommodation. There's in Georgetown, there's the Grand Coastal Hotel, there's Herdmanston Lodge, there's Marriott, the Pegasus, the Ramada. If you're heading up Berbice, there's the Berbice Inn, which is a wonderful colonial style inn in Berbice. Up the Linden Highway, of course, there's Pandama, and I was asked also about bread and B&Bs. There's the Rainforest B&B in Queenstown. It's really a little paradise in the middle of the city. With regards to river resorts, there's Sloat Island, Hurucabra, Baganara, Mainstay, our point. I'm gonna give you a little more information on all of these places throughout the presentation, but you can go through it at your own leisure as well. And of course, Facebook, all of them have social media platforms that you can visit to learn more. Food and dining, this is another question we get often from the diaspora. Guyanese cuisine is, we have our staple cuisine that's linked to our identity, but our cuisine is always constantly emerging. We have a lot of young, vibrant chefs that are bringing their own spins to our menu. So there are lots of places we recommend. I know a lot of you would have heard of the Backyard Cafe. That's a wonderful, unique experience. There's Pergola, not a young chef as well. That's his place. And he does a lot of farm to table. He does a lot of infused art. His restaurant, he has paintings, he does events. So, our cuisine and the choices we have now for restaurants, you can have your Creole food at Hot and Spicy Creole Corner. You can have your Chinese, New Thriving. There's several other places. There's the Duke, there's just German soup. So, if you're coming and you're nostalgic, you want your Guyanese food, you can get that Backyard Cafe, Hot and Spicy. If you're looking for fusion of international Guyanese, there are other places as well. We have tons of cafes. There's the Giftland Mall Food Court as well. That's like a plethora of all kinds of different flavors you're going to find there in their offerings. So definitely, we love our food here in Guyana. All of you who have Guyanese ties would know that. So food is not an issue at all. So what I did is to divide the tours that are available, because I think part of the problem sometimes we find is the diaspora, based on the questions we receive, they're not quite certain of what tours are available to them. If I'm coming for a weekend, if I'm coming for a week, if I'm coming for shorter stays, what can I do? So what I did was to divide the information up into day tours, weekend tours, and city tours. So I'm gonna try to give you guys as much information as I can. With regards to the day tours, people oftentimes they're traveling with children too, or they're traveling with elderly people. They may not want to take the weekend away. They just want to do a day trip. So I'm gonna highlight some of those things that they can do. So some of the new emerging tours that are coming up that have been getting awesome response would be this one. It's a kid rainforest or adult hike and bush cook tour. The kids rainforest tours, you can see from some of the photos I have here, it has like a scavenger hunt. They do rainforest craft where they're painting leaves. They're introduced to why is the rainforest important, flora, fauna, and all kinds of good stuff they learn on this hike. The adult hike at the Bush Cook Tour, this one takes you up Long Creek where you do a hike, and then you go to Marudi Creek and they do a bush cook there. During that hike, you learn a bit about rainforest survival, how to use a compass, bird spotting, and all kinds of good stuff. So this is a one-day tour. You can do it in a day, and it's wonderful. The Linden and the Blue Lakes tour as well. This has been getting a lot of interest from the diaspora. This tour actually takes you on a tour from Georgetown to Linden. You see some of the historical bauxite mining sites, the water wheel, the churches. You also see, you stop for lunch at Watuka Lodge, then they take you on a tour of the Blue Lakes. There's also one tour alone that goes to the Blue Lakes. So it cuts out the historical part, but you can go picnic by the Blue Lakes. And this is also a great one-day tour option. The Essequibo Great Lakes, this is another great option. Guyana has 5 Great Lakes in the Essequibo. I'm only showing a few of them here. There's Lake Kapui, there's Lake Tapakuma, Mashabo, Lake Mainstay, the Hot and Cold Lake. Many of you might remember the Hot and Cold Lake growing up, but these are also wonderful options for one-day tours if you're looking for something outside the ordinary, something different. This is one of my favorite tours. It's the market tour done by Chef Delvin Adams of the Backyard Cafe. His personality is so infectious. He is such a wonderful ambassador for Guyana. So he takes you on a tour of the border market. You learn all about Guyanese produce. So let me tell you, even if you're Guyanese, when you go on a tour with Delvin, he makes you see it through new, fresh eyes. So this tour is something that we're really, proud to promote as well. And once you would have shopped for your produce, he takes you back to his backyard, hence the name Backyard Cafe, for a cooking class, and you enjoy his wonderful cuisine. It's true fresh produce cooked before your eyes. So this is a unique experience I highly recommend. There's also a new tour recently launched, the Seven Curry Tour. This is also a wonderful tour as well. The chef who does it is called Chef Ian. So Delvin also does a Seven Curry Tour as well as Ian. Both of them are great at what they're doing. And on this tour, you go lotus leaf picking. So you're told, traditionally about the lotus leaf, the 7 curry. You go to the market to choose the ingredients for the 7 curries. You get a lesson in all the spices used to make the masala. And then, of course, you enjoy the 7 curry. So this is also a wonderful one-day tour. Again, something that celebrates our rich heritage, our rich culture, and something I think even if you have kids who are non-Guyanese and they're curious to learn about their roots, this is a wonderful experience that will expose them to their heritage. Another tour, the Essequibo River Tour, those have not quite resumed as yet, but this takes you on a tour of the Essequibo to several of our main highlights, like Fort Island. So you get a historical tour of Fort Island, Bartica, you stop at Edith Float Island, RY, and you also stop at Barakar Falls. This is a wonderful tour if you want a mix of history as well as leisure. So this is a great tour as well, another one-day tour. Mahaico River Tour, there are two. There's the fishing and the birding tours offered by different operators. The fishing tour stops at Santa Mission, which is an indigenous community. So you get a taste of indigenous culture. And it's very important for me to highlight as well, when we support our indigenous communities, we support families. We're sending kids to school. We're helping them to get their books, their snacks, their needs, their livelihood we're supporting. So that's why it's important for us to support our communities. You get to see on this Mahaica tour as well our national bird, the kanji pheasant or hotsin. You get to see red howler monkeys just sunbathing on the branches. And all these pictures you're seeing here, we took ourselves. I take pictures, paint a wonderful visual of the experiences you can have, and of course I can't share all in this presentation, but I'm trying. So we move from there on to weekend and overnight tours. Juanita had asked me to highlight some of the places, that are off the beaten path, different things outside of Kaieteur. And a great alternative for Kaieteur is Ochi Falls in Parima. That's in Region 8. It's actually 240 meters tall. It's quite high. So this is a great alternative if you love waterfalls, but you've already done Kaieteur. There are also so many different river resorts as well for weekend and overnight tours. All of our resorts along the in the Essequibo as well as Demerara offer wonderful experiences and amenities that you can enjoy. There's the Morocco-Bay tour as well. I just mentioned to you the value of supporting indigenous communities, so we're going to get a little bit more into that shortly. So with regards to our point resort is located on the left bank of the Community Creek, of the Demerara. Some of the highlights on this tour, you get to stop at Santa Aratak, an indigenous community. They have a lovely craft shop there. Everything is handcrafted. So you get to do a little shopping, head up to the resort. You can kayak, relax in a hammock, do beach games. There are tons of different things, mountain biking. They do a kayak tour from Arrow Point right around the resort, and you get back to the front of the resort. It's a wonderful kayaking experience if you like that type of thing. Lake Mainstay as well as a wonderful alternative if you're looking for a weekend getaway. You may not know what to do if you're looking for a family getaway, reunions. It's very spacious, so social distancing isn't an issue. You can drive here. So for people who don't necessarily want to do the speedboat or the jet boats, you can do You can drive up to Lake Mainstay, and you can do off-site tours as well to the Essequibo Great Lakes. The resort offers those tours, or you can go yourself. Sloat Island Resort, one of my personal favorite places because it's so quiet. Contrary to popular belief, we do have beaches, as you can see in some of these photos. The beaches are highlighted. Sloat Island, true to its name, they do have a lot of sloats there, and they take you on a tour of their mini canopy walkway, and you get to go sloat spotting. You can also go on an off-site tour to Parrot Island. This is a particular little island just off of Paracabra and Sloat Island, where in the afternoons, hundreds of parrots go home to roost. So just as the sun is dipping, it's such a beautiful experience that every Guyanese, non-Guyanese, everybody will love. So Sloat Island is another recommendation for a weekend stay. Horacaba Resort as well. That's located on the west bank side of the Essequibo. It's about 2 hours from Georgetown. A highlight on this particular tour is their tea and tour. The same island I mentioned just now, Parrot Island. Well, they pack a picnic basket with tea, and you have tea on the boat while you're watching the sunrise and all of the sunset, sorry, and all of the parrots come home. So this is a really wonderful experience from Horacabra. They also do a sunset dinner on the beach. So you have beautiful candlelight. The ambience is wonderful if you're looking for a romantic experience or a honeymoon, perhaps. This is a wonderful option as well. Baganara, I know a lot of people are familiar with. I love, one of the highlights at Baganara is their beach and bonfire, as well as they do a wonderful nature walk. They have the rainforest just at back of the resort, and the nature trail is lovely. So they have actually a lot of wonderful trees, and the history of them is just magnificent. RY Resort has not reopened as yet. All of the others are, but RY is not until April. Of course, this is more first world experience with regards to their amenities and the look and feel of the place. They also do, one of the highlights on this tour is their Barcar Falls tour. If you stay overnight, they take you over to the falls across from the resort, and it's a really great, refreshing waterfall as well. Adele's Rainforest Resort, true to the name, it is nestled in rich emerald rainforest. It's a wonderful place to relax, rejuvenate. If you like yoga, if you're looking to just reconnect with nature, this is a wonderful place, and the food is wonderful as well, and the company. So I highly recommend Adele's as well. Now on to two you may not have heard about, Moroccoby. This is in Region 5. I recently went there. It is an indigenous community, and we learned so much on this trip. They taught us to make cassava bread. We went evening fishing with spear fishing in the evening. We went canoeing in their dugout canoe. We learned all the tricks of the trade. They taught us all about cassava processing, farine. We learned how to harvest the ite palm. A lot of the craft you see, the indigenous craft you see here in Guyana is actually comes from the ite palm, and they process it into a straw to be seared to make all kinds of different craft items. And we were exposed to that, and we learned it from the people that live there. This is what they do. This is their life. So this is not a tour to them. We're learning about their way of life day to day. So this is a really wonderful tour. One of the other highlights of this tour is you have to fish for your own fish, and then you learn to make a dish called boily boily, where they boil the fish with some cashew spices in the open air, and you eat it with cassava bread. You also learn all about harvesting the Tacoma worm. So this is really, if you're looking for a real off the beaten path experience, you want to really get in touch with the heart of Guyana and our indigenous culture, this is also a wonderful tour. If you don't want to go to the Rupununi, Moroccoby is the place. So these are all overnight tours that you can do. Go through it. I'll send the presentation out at your own leisure. City tours as well, the Botanical Gardens, Georgetown. I know people are coming for business as well. They may not have the entire weekend, but these are all great options. There are many tour operators offering city tours, botanical gardens tours. The gardens isn't open yet, but this is a great place to start if you're a startup bird watcher. Or I know the UK has a lot of bird watches as well. This is a great option if you're just coming for a short stay and you want to experience some of the birds. It has over 200 species in the botanical gardens alone. Yes, and of course the Georgetown City Tours, it takes you to see all of the sites, or Umanayana, you go by the seawall, you get to do a bit of shopping at the craft shops, Hibiscus Plaza. There are tons and tons of different activities you can do. And all of them are following COVID protocols. The photos you're seeing here, just to caution you, they were taken pre-COVID, but all of these tours are following protocols, so you don't have to worry. Now we get to Guyana's jewel, the heart of our tourism. It's the Rupununi. Juanita again asked me to mention places that people can enjoy bird watching and different experiences. There's Wyken Ranch. You wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, you go Antita spotting, you can go horseback riding, there's fishing, you can go visit the Kumo Falls, Mokomoko Falls, there's Aracrama, right? Wyken Ranch is about 45 minutes from Lethem. The accommodation is wonderful, hospitality is great. The highlight of my experience here was actually the horseback riding, because I'd never done it. And their guide, Kev Thomas, was so gracious and he was so patient. Of course, the Antita spotting was wonderful as well. You guys will love that. It's once in a lifetime experience, trust me on that. And again, apart from kite tour, as I mentioned, there's Mokomoko Falls, there's Kumu Falls. Both are wonderful, refreshing waterfalls. If you've already done kite tour, these are great options. Aracrama Canopy Walkway, again, this is a tour that we usually get a lot of interest about from diaspora, particularly in the UK. Of course, it's the Aracrama Lodge. From there, you can go get a Aracrama Canopy experience, and the experience you'll have of the rainforest from the canopy is very unique one, as opposed to if you're walking through the forest. So this again is a highlight of visiting Aracrama. It's their canopy walkway. They have amazing variety of birds that you will not see anywhere else in Guyana. So this is a must do. Riwe Eco Lodge, of course, some of you may remember Gordon Ramsay recently came and he did his Uncharted filming here. The Riwe Eco Lodge, one of the reasons I love like Riwe and Sarama, they're community owned and led, which means that the community are the ones who own this resort. They cook the food, they take care of it. So when you support them, you're supporting, as I mentioned again, and I'm just emphasizing this, you are supporting a community and a family. So Riwa has wonderful experiences with regards to sport fishing, if you love that. Indigenous experiences such as cassava bread making, caswip making, basket weaving. They have the river tour, wildlife spotting, caiman spotting. There's just tons to do. And as you can see in the second photo, that's the Eco Lodge. And that's one of the things I want to highlight about our Eco Lodges. They're very environmentally friendly, low impact. They're all made using sustainable materials from our rainforest. So everything is very friendly to the environment. So for people who have concerns about our environment, safety, these are great places for you to stay and contribute to, because it keeps our communities and our rainforests alive. So some events that are coming up, Guyana Restaurant Week is expected in June, the 18th to the 27th, 2021. The Tourism and Hospitality Association are currently planning a resort week. Those dates will be determined, and I'll send all of those updates to Juanita. So I hope you guys, so far you're learning something, you're getting some inspiration, some ideas of what you can do. We'll be launching our tour company shortly, Visit Guyana Tours. Basically what we're aiming to do, because we get so much feedback from people asking us about tour information, we usually send it out to different tour operators. We are trying to consolidate all that information in one place, where you can just come one place. We are reselling everybody's tours. All of the other tour operators will be sitting with them, speaking with them. We'll be reselling their tours. So it's not tours that we're doing on our own at this point, but we're trying to be a middle person where we can, people can just come to us one spot and we can give them all the info they need. Because that's what we're doing currently, but you know, it's a little more streamlined. We're also going to work with people to plan reunions, family getaways, evening tours. These are all things that we're getting inquiries on the page every day, dozens and dozens of inquiries coming about this, particularly because everybody wants to come for summer. So definitely reach out to us if you have any questions with regards to tours and booking of tours. And if you haven't been in a while from airport to tour, we can get all of that figured out for you. So I just want to mention also our UK reps, Lotus, they're doing amazing work. And during COVID, in spite of the challenges, they have been doing a lot with regards to their digital marketing campaigns for the BBC. They have gotten us features in several publications, several hubs out there. They've been doing a lot of webinars. So I included a slide. You can definitely reach out to them, Lotus Company. If you have questions and you're living in the UK, there are representatives there in the UK, and they will guide you. All of the work, some of the work that they're doing, I touched on in this slide. You're gonna read it at your own leisure. But thank you so much, Lotus, for all the work you've been doing for Guyana. We appreciate it so much. And as I said, even last night, I did a presentation. I said to people, there is power in partnership. All of us are ambassadors for Guyana. We love this country. And I look forward to your questions now. So I hope you guys enjoyed that and you were inspired somewhat to visit Guyana. So if you have any questions for me, please go ahead.
Yeah, Stacey, firstly, thank you so much. You completely covered exactly what I wanted you to cover, and that was great. I'm excited now. I thought I'd been to most places in Guyana. I'm like, oh my God, I've got so many places to go to. So that's fantastic. I think like my favorite was the of the places I've been was the kayaking in Arrow Point. Really enjoyed that. It's amazing. And also Iroquois. Like if you haven't, like, I think that's one of the first places you need to go to in Guyana if you haven't really traveled around Guyana. So yeah, thank you for that. I just wondered as a question, what do you recommend, you know, for these kind of more remote places, especially the places that are more where you're situated more in the rainforest? I tend to have issues with things like sandfly and batrouche. And I'm just wondering, like, what would you recommend as a really good thing to kind of stave them off?
We have quite a bit of repellent here available in the Guyana shop, but one of the ones that work for me, I'm just speaking for myself here, is crabwood oil. Yes. That actually worked.
Yeah.
So some people I've heard mixed feedback on it. They have to use the repellent as well as the crabwood oil. But for me, that's the one I would recommend. You know, that worked well for me. Yeah. But really and truly, just come equipped with your insect repellent. We have available here in Guyana. We do have insect repellent with crabwood oil in it, available at the Guyana shop. So you can get it.
I have to say, when I was living in the Pomeroon, actually at Adele's Resort, and also at the across the river at Stall Enterprise, we had a lot of you know, every now and then there'd be mosquitoes and sandflies, and I tried everything and nothing worked until I used the crabwood oil. So I'm glad that you said that. Yeah, the natural crabwood oil is amazing. Yeah,
it is. And it's such, apart from being a repellent, it's so good for your skin and your hair too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so
exactly.
It is wonderful.
I actually discovered it's quite good for eczema. If you have eczema, it's great. Like an unexpected side, unexpected side benefit. But I think I'm just going to run through the questions quickly that are in the chat. And I think the first one that I saw that came up was from Stephen Cragg. And he wants to know if Guyana's new oil drilling will affect the country's sustainability standing. And then Luke Daniels, I think it's Luke Daniels from Caribbean Labor Solidarity Group, put in a message that said, how does the recent oil exploration impact the people of Guyana, and will it not lead to swathes of the country being sold off to external parties? I mean, it's probably not really a question for you, but I don't know if you've seen, what is the impact, like what has been the impact of the oil on tourism?
So basically, since the two questions are sort of related to each other, with regards to environmental impact, that's the million-dollar question. The drilling is not being done close to our forests or our tourism destinations, but certainly it's always a concern when you're doing things like oil drilling and its impact on the environment. I know the tourism industry and the stakeholders are paying close attention to that. They're working with the Environmental Protection Agency and so forth to ensure that the impact is as minimal as possible. There's lots of information available through environmental protection. I can't go into depth with that, of course. That's a whole separate conversation, but certainly you can reach out to Environmental Protection Agency. What I will do, I will get some of that information up and shoot it to you, Juanita, as well as Mr. Prague. I'll send that off to them as well. With regards to the impact of oil and gas and selling off of land and all of that, that's a political issue. It relates to politics, which again is a whole new conversation that will probably take us all week. On the tourism front, we have not heard of any such thing, at least me personally, with regards to selling off of land and stuff. With regards to, that relates directly to local content. It relates to our people here in Guyana, and I'm going to be frank with you, paying attention to what's happening. We have to understand that we are one people, as our motto says, and we have to collectively ask those questions to the powers that be and ensure that those responses are transparent. Whatever negotiations or an oil business is happening behind the scenes, go invest in the Ministry of Business. Probably should have those things on their website. And this is something I will take all of this feedback from you, take it back to our stakeholders and relative and our partners and let them know, you know, maybe this is some of the information we can put out there and address as well as tourism stakeholders. On the Visit Guyana front, I'll definitely do more research into this and ask more questions and put that sort of information out there for you as well. So thanks so much for the questions. I'll definitely have them addressed and send my responses to Juanita.
And also, is there, I mean, what's the best way to contact you? I mean, if they want to have more questions they want to address directly, or? Right.
Well, you can contact me directly on my Facebook page, Stacey Rahaman. You can send us an email, visitgayananow@gmail.com. That's our email address. The presentation I'm going to send out to Juanita to send to you guys has all of our contact information as well. I'm on WhatsApp. I respond as a lot of people on Visit Guyana can tell you, we have people that respond 24 hours a day. What we're doing on that platform is all of the questions that tourism stakeholders, whether you're a hotel owner, restaurant owner, you do tours, whatever it is, those questions come to us, right? We get over 6 million views on that page monthly. So you can just imagine the volume of questions that come in there, and we answer each and every single one of them, all of them. So this is something that, you know, you have no issue. If you want to contact me, just inbox the Visit Guyana page as well, and somebody will respond to you. If not myself, somebody else will.
Great, thank you for that, Stacey. And then, gosh, there's so many questions. I think the one that I'm interested in, somebody's sent me a question asking about turtle watching, you know, on Shell Beach. Is it accessible to the public, you know, the turtle watching at Shell Beach, or not?
The last time I spoke to the operator that usually does tours there, he said, no, it's not accessible. It's not open to the public. His response to me was because they were afraid of the impact that people going there was having on the environment. So it's not open. As of my conversation was probably November last year. They didn't have any plans for it to reopen at that time.
Okay, great. I can see kind of just general questions, things like about vegetarian food, but I mean, vegetarian food is everywhere in Guyana. There's
It's
plenty of
everywhere,
vegetarian,
yeah.
yeah. And I'm not sure if it's Salvador, but I think it's Salvador de Caries has suggested that actually you just, if you're going to any resort, just let them know ahead of time, and they will make sure that you have all the vegetarian food you need. But yeah, I can say that although I'm not a vegetarian, when I was in Guyana, I just spent most of my time eating vegetarian food because it's just everywhere. The markets are full of amazing foods,
Of
and
course.
yeah, and the same thing with the restaurants. So
And that's why the Seven Curry tour is wonderful too. If you're vegetarian, it's all vegetarian.
yeah, it's fantastic. So that's really good. And then somebody was also asking about vaccinations, and I think when I went to Ghana, the only one, well, actually, I'd always had yellow fever, but I think yellow fever is probably the only one that you have to have.
Yeah, that is a requirement. You have to have the yellow fever vaccine.
Okay. And the other thing, just if I've ignored some of your questions, everyone, I apologize. I'll if you want to address those questions to me directly, I can kind of respond to them once I've got Stacey's information from the PowerPoint. But I just wanted to address a few things that I know people who are nervous of. I mean, certainly a lot of people in the diaspora who haven't traveled back to Guyana, they always worry about two things. So safety, whether it's to do with crime or things like if you were to have an accident in the middle of Guyana somewhere, you know, you fall out your kayak or whatever. How are things like that kind of catered for in terms of the tourism, and if there's any accidents as well?
Yeah. Well, those are all valid questions with regards to if you're visiting a remote area and an emergency occurs. All of our guides are trained. They secure first aid training before they can be certified as a guide. So everybody there, you're in good hands. Thankfully, we've never had any negative experience at any of our eco lodges. None of our tour companies have reported any incidents like that, but rest assured, our tour operators know what they're doing. The guides that work with them know what they're doing. They're fully equipped to take care of you. So you don't have to be afraid. With regards to safety and security, I just want to mention again, this is something I repeat often on our page in particular. Don't equate Georgetown with Guyana holistically. It is a part of Guyana. It's our major city. Like all cities in the world, there are areas that you should not venture into. There are areas, if you do venture into, make sure you're not wearing, you know, a lot of jewelry, your camera around your neck, you know, you're taking common sense precautions, I like to call them, right? Every city in the world has areas like that. That being said, our tourism highlights are all outside of the city. And again, we've had no reports of any tourist, local person traveling there being harmed in any way. So you can safely go to Kaichor, Aracama, the Rupununis, the Esquibo resorts, and you do not have to worry. Like I said, our tour operators know what they're doing. They're well equipped and certified. All the guides that work with them know what they're doing. All of them have received first aid training and extensive training from the Guyana Tourism Authority and from the Tourism and Hospitality Association. So you can confidently come. And again, if you have any questions prior to arriving in Guyana, or you're trying to plan a trip and you just want a bit more reassurance, reach out to me at any time. We are here to help you. On the Visit Guyana page, just inbox us.
And also, Stacey, I know a lot of people who, if they haven't been to Guyana for a long time, they're quite interested in traveling across maybe to Suriname or to French Guyana. Are there tour guides in Guyana that can make those connections for them or help them?
Yes, there are tour operating companies that do crossover tours for sure. And if you need a list of those operators, you can just inbox me with exactly what is it you're looking for, and we will connect you with the relevant operators. But there are tours that do cross border experiences.
Yeah, and I'd really highly recommend it. It's such an exciting, spending time in Guyana and then going through Suriname and French Guyana. It's
Exactly.
really
And it's interesting
fascinating.
that you mentioned that. And Salvador would be able to speak more to this as well. There was a meeting with the three Guyanas prior to COVID. So there was a lot of synergies. And I know Andrea was over in French Guyana as well as Suriname. And they did a lot of groundwork with regards to developing these tourism relationships. So they can speak more to that as well. But definitely there are tour operators offering those types of packages.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask just one last question because I'm conscious that it's now nearly 3. So and so the last question I'm going to ask is, if you had 14 days to spend in Guyana, how many of those days would you recommend being spent in Georgetown and the rest outside?
Can I say none? No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. Georgetown has beautiful experiences, but you can see a lot of the city in a few days, right? There's the Georgetown City Tour, as I mentioned before, and all of that, but really it's minimum. I would recommend you plan a trip where you can get, the Linden Shore tour experiences at Pandama Winery. You can go to our creeks, and then, if you're looking for a little longer stay, head up to the Rupununis, maybe our Essequibo Resort. So you can mix and match and have a wonderful experience that does not exclude the city, but in the city, you're going to exhaust that in a short amount of time, really.
We've got Egbert Carter on after you, so I'm sure Egbert's going to encourage us to look at the architecture in Georgetown before moving out.
Of course, yes.
But, yeah, so I mean, like a day, 2 days is good, I think. But
2 days.
Yeah. There's actually one last question that's come up that I think is really interesting in terms of tours, because a lot of people in the UK and elsewhere in the diaspora are interested in the experience of their particular group. So whether you're Afro-Caribbean or whether you're Indo-Guyanese or Amerindian background, are there tours that kind of look at the histories of particular groups or ethnic groups? Like, I mean, I know there's a lot in terms of, like, if you were going to explore the Dutch history of Guyana, but I wonder if people were actually going to explore of different, the experiences of different ethnic groups.
Well, you can have those experiences. I don't know if there's any one tour that explores different ethnicities or different cultural backgrounds in one tour, which would be a great idea. But there are different experiences that you can have that speaks to our heritage. So I see Karina just mentioned the African Heritage Museum. That's a beautiful museum. I love it. We've featured it many times. We did a story about it in our magazine as well. There's the Seven Curry Tour, which speaks to our Indian culture. So there are experiences that you can have when you visit that speaks to our different cultures and heritage, particularly if you're visiting for a festival. Of course, with COVID here, that sort of put a damp on some of the festivals that we have that speaks to all of those heritage, like Matrimony and so forth. But definitely, if you're coming to Guyana and you want to experience particular cultures, we can recommend places that you can go to that speak to those experiences. I can certainly recommend places. If somebody develops a tour, I'll tell you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And just one question, and my final question is—
no problem, that's fine.
I know I'm just trying to keep myself on track, and I'm doing a very bad job because it's such an interesting presentation, Stacey. We literally,
thank you so much.
We literally should just do one that's totally focused on tourism because there's so much to talk about. But
anytime.
I wanted to know about people with limited mobility, because I noticed Aubrey McWatt has just raised that, and that's such an important question, because if anybody's got any mobility challenges, how can they get around Guyana? Is it difficult, or do people cater to it?
That's largely changing. In the past, it was really difficult. It's changing due to the guidance from our product development people in tourism. They have standards that places now have to follow it. They have to put in ramps for people who may be in wheelchairs. I know there are people that have gone to Kaieteur from who are differently abled. So the stakeholders have been putting things in place to ensure that persons who are differently abled are catered for. What needs to happen is if you have a particular disability, just reach out to the relevant tour operators prior to coming, and they will advise you, and they can craft something that will make your trip and stay as comfortable as possible. That I can reassure you of.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, well, Stacey, thank you so much. And I'm sure Rod and I are going to come back to you again at some point to ask if we could just do one that's focused like an hour on tourism, because there's just so much to be said. And I can just see from the chat box that there's loads more questions. Thankfully, we've got Karina Sharples in the house today, so she's managing to answer a lot of the questions for us in there.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, thanks. I just want to shout her out and say thanks for all the awesome articles that she wrote for us for both of our publications. So we were grateful to that. And we'll be reaching out to you soon. But definitely, she's a great resource. There are several other people on this session that are great resources to tourism as well. But guys, as I mentioned, feel free to reach out to us at any time. Visit Guyana is always here to help. You know, help you to make a great decision and to make your trip wonderful. So reach out to me at any time. Fantastic. And I'll shoot the presentation as well to Juanita, and she'll send it out. So thanks so much for your questions. Juanita, any of the questions that are there that I didn't manage to answer, please, you can email them to me and I'll be happy to respond.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And unfortunately, because we're all on Zoom, you can't hear everybody clapping. But yes, from me, thank you so much on behalf of everyone. We really appreciate it. It's fantastic, Stacey.
And thank you so much for being so gracious, and everybody else, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see all of you here in Guyana soon. Take care, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye, Stacey. So we're now going to move on to the recording that I have. Now, let me see. So I'm going to share the screen because Rod kindly organized this, and he contacted Wayne McWatt and Egbert Carter and managed to get them to do an interview together. So I'm just going to share this, and let me just make sure actually you're going to be able to hear this. I'm just going to stop share a second, because I know sometimes the share sound, here we go, that should work. If you can't hear the sound, please make sure you comment in the chat box so that I know. Okay, welcome to this edition of Guyana Speaks. This edition is called Tourism, Tangible Heritage, and the Spoken Word. In this particular segment, we're going to be looking at the built architecture of Georgetown in Guyana. And we're very delighted to have the expertise of Mr. Egbert Carter. He is a retired civil engineer who graduated from the University of Birmingham in the UK with a postgraduate diploma in highway and traffic engineering in 1968 and a Master of Science degree in transportation and environmental science in 1969. He returned to Guyana in the same year and was employed as an assistant city engineer with the Mayor and City Council of Georgetown. His interest in the built architecture of the colonial period and the preservation of the same, especially in the capital city, has generated an undying love for the preservation of those edifices that still remain. And we're very grateful as well to have Wayne McWatt. Wayne is well known for his extensive knowledge on the architecture as well of Georgetown in Guyana. And he's very kindly produced a PowerPoint to go along with this conversation. And Wayne and Egbert will essentially be holding the conversation, and then I'll close the conversation when we get to the end. Wayne was also born in Georgetown. He's now retired and lives in London. Most of his working career was with the Shell Group companies, working primarily in information management and IT. And as I say, his current interests, passions, I would actually say, include art and architectural history. So Wayne, but thank you so much. And over to you, Wayne, to start the conversation off.
Well, hello, Bert. It's good to be able to meet again. I think we met in Guyana about 3 years ago, so it's nice to catch up with you. Now, both you've always been passionate about Guyana's heritage, so particularly the 19th century buildings. So it's very good we have this conversation where we can actually take a walk through Georgetown and have a look at the buildings where they stand now, you know, how they were before, and to see how we can actually maintain them and take them forward into the future. So I think the plan is to actually take a walk through the Georgetown Heritage Route, which we probably start somewhere at Stabroek and walk northwards along Avenue of the Republic towards the cathedral. So we'll have hopefully a leisurely walk looking at these buildings, looking to see what they look like now, reflecting back what they were before, and hoping very much that we continue to maintain them. Now, you've called them the Magnificent Seven, which are obviously your favorite ones. There's one naughty sibling there, which we probably get to, but then again, we deal with that when we come to it. So, okay, we start in Georgetown. So I've got a brief, very rough map here for you to go through, which obviously, sorry, can you get that? Could you see that? It's not quite clear. I'm trying to get that on my screen, a bit big. Oh yeah. So if you want to take us on from there, so assuming we start somewhere around Stabroek, which takes us to the public buildings. And as you know, the public buildings are really quite important in the sense it starts as the center of where Georgetown actually happened. Because the irony is the building itself obviously contained all the various government departments, which in turn spread around the city. So the building itself is a very focal point of where we all begin. So do tell us where we stand. So take it from here.
Okay, Wayne, thank you very much for the introduction. We need to thank you for the very laudable introduction. Actually, the public building itself they started in 1829 and completed in April of 1834. It was opened by Governor Light, who was governor at the time. And in fact, it cost just about £50,000 in those days. Of course, cement, as we know, Portland cement was not invented until 1829. So we didn't have the benefit of concrete foundation. In fact, the building is on a floating foundation of green logs. And in fact, it's so well built that you don't even see a crack in the building these days. The building itself is a very imposing structure. And I dare say that it was not fenced until 1873. And in 1859, there were a pair of cannons from the Crimean War. There were trophies of war that were installed in the front of the building. The building itself is very nice in the sense that it started off where our present parliament is as a public building. Yeah, there's a very beautiful picture of it before it was fenced in 1873. Yeah. In fact, the architect was a chap by the name of John Hatfield, and the supervisor of the works was Mr. Kroll. But in fact, I dare say Castellani had his hand in it because the ceiling in the building was his design, and much to Mr. Shavir, Minister of Public Works at the time. Yeah, they're a beautiful picture of the ceiling, all handcraft wood. And in fact, what the minister did in 2011, just before the change of government, he had it replicated in fiberglass, and a portion of it is with the National Trust for safekeeping and a part of memorabilia, you know. Yeah, beautiful. Very nice.
So would that be plaster work at the moment now? Would that be the actual reproduction done in plastic? I'm not too sure. Can you tell us? It looks pretty well restored.
Yeah, they're pretty well done. But this is the original. This is original before. Yeah.
Okay, because I think the National Trust in their offices have a few examples of these bits of ceiling, which they have on display somewhere here.
Yeah, they kept pieces of it, yes.
Okay. I'll just flash back to this quickly because this shows an example of the old legislative council as it then sat in the 1950s. So it gives you an idea of what happened before independence, where the government legislature neatly sat around that table, which looked very smart and tidy. So there we go from there. That's probably taken somewhere around the 1970s. So we have a slight contrast there.
You're right, man.
Yeah.
This is the ceiling, the stairway that leads up into the first floor. It's a very beautiful ceiling. In fact, it's one of the 3 buildings in Georgetown that had rotundas. This one, the Barclays Bank, and the Park Hotel all had rotundas.
Now, Bert, I'm very curious about the date of 1832 there. It's significant. It's somewhere within the building period, but it also could stand for the 1832 Reform Act. It could mean very many things. It could mean the beginning of Georgetown. So that date seems to be it's open-ended, so to speak. Do you have any idea, why that particular date, 1832?
Not really, the city Georgetown was not declared a city until 1843, after the St. George's Cathedral was built. 1832. I'm not sure what that date means, but I know that the building was opened in 1834 by Governor Light. In time for emancipation,
Or perhaps it corresponded with that particular date, because the City Hall obviously is very closely tied up with emancipation, because we've heard, for example, people like Schomburg, where the slaves were actually sent to the gallows on the grounds outside. At the same time, when we get to the church across the way, the slaves were the first slaves to be actually admitted into St. Andrew's Church. So that whole area has that close link with the celebration of emancipation.
Okay.
Okay, and anything else that you want to pick up on the building as such?
Not really,
Yeah. I think it's also worth mentioning that when before Government House was built, the governors had their apartment within the public buildings as well. Their residence before they actually moved to a separate house elsewhere, which they had to pay rent for, apparently.
In fact, Government House was built in 1852. And this building was called public buildings because a lot of public offices, like the post office, was there,
That's right. Okay, we now move from the public buildings, which gives us a panorama of what's ahead of us. We've got St. Andrews, as we can see, then across the road, it takes us down the old High Street Avenue of the Republic. So here we go to St. Andrew's Church, which it's been with us for some time now, and obviously has quite a long history.
St. Andrew's Church is very interesting because, as the data shows, the foundation was laid on the 12th of April 1811 and completed on the 27th of September 1818. In fact, the architect shown there is Isaac Hatfield. I've seen where they claim that the architect is also Joseph Hatfield. Joseph, as you recall, was done the apartment buildings. Anyway, neither here nor there, but the governor who laid the cornerstone was Governor Bentinck, after whom the street is named, hence Bentinck Street.
Right. Yeah, because that's Isaac Hatfield. I've only recently come across the name, really. He may well have been a sibling of Joseph Hatfield, because they're just 1 year apart, so they could well have been part of the same Hatfield family.
Could well have been, yes, I think so.
Okay.
Beautiful structure.
Yeah.
The roof is what they call a mansard roof, typical Scandinavian design. But inside the ceiling itself is a vaulted ceiling. The building itself is quite a substantive piece of work. I dare say, I think in the city of Georgetown, it is the most.
Yeah, because can you hear me? Sorry, it appears that those buttresses were put up in the 1940s to prevent the building was about to not collapse, but they actually act as buttresses holding the building together. So they're quite cleverly buttresses. They're not very, they're not too protrusive.
No, they're not.
Also, taking back slightly, so these are two photographs of the churches that probably appeared just after the 1850s, 1860s, which gives you a very sort of pastoral landscape of Georgetown, really very rural.
Yes, I'd like to say something about the interior of the church.
Okay.
In fact, if you go to the slide that shows the interior, there you are. There's a gallery. In fact, the slaves after emancipation were allowed into the building and they had to use the gallery. Now, the gallery has a very interesting point of view that when the slaves were up there and time for them to say prayers, they built a wall at the edge of the gallery that allowed the slaves not to be able to look over to see the planters on their knees as well. It would be wrong for them to have seen the boss, so to speak, on his knees. So that's why you see that, I don't know what you call it, a guardrail or something like that. Balcony railing around the balcony is high enough so that when you kneel, you didn't see anything on the floor below. I thought that was very critical, but anyway, it does be said.
That's the staircase leading up to the balcony. And
that's right. another view.
I think it's a nice quiet Sunday morning in Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we move now from St. Andrew's Church, really, which directly opposite, we cross the road now to, here we come to the Magistrates Court.
Yeah, it was designed by Castellani. In fact, it was opened in 1891, as you can see. But the truth is, there's a very beautiful building. In fact, just recently, they added on much of the architects who did the job recently. He tried to maintain the same kind of decor. So it looks very impressive now. But the building itself is very nice. It's one of Castellani's better works, I dare say.
I suppose, is that his only recorded work done in stone? Because I can't think of him doing anything else in stone. He obviously specialized in wood. So this was quite late, presumably the 1890s. So that would be almost the end of his career in Georgetown.
In fact, there's a very interesting feature about the buildings along that avenue. They're all concrete downstairs on the ground floor and wood on the first floor. All of them except the hand, which is just a single-story building. But it tells me that the guys didn't have their homework together with respect to our soil mechanics at this period. So nobody wanted to take a chance. And so Castellani stuck his neck out when he went to this building to be concrete downstairs and concrete upstairs. In fact, it's still distributed, it's still standing. No cracks, no nothing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's interesting how we have the contrast with the public buildings, which are obviously a stone building built with strong foundations. And then when we come later to St. George's Cathedral, the other thing happened the other way around, where you had a stone building that they put a wooden one up instead. So the contrast, you know, one stood up to the end and the other one was about to fall down, and they obviously went for the wooden version rather than the concrete version.
That's right. And when we get to St. George, I'll tell you some more about that.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just put that up as an illustration which links the various buildings together. Now, but this particular panorama is very interesting because the original was produced sometime in a limited version, which some people have got. But if I remember rightly, this particular version used to be in the old Tower Hotel.
That's right, that's right.
And nobody seems to be able to remember it, but it gives a very interesting panorama right across, well, the whole of virtually High Street. But I think it was also based on an original drawing, which is not the same thing. So we'll probably come back to that at another time, but that's just interesting the way one sees the buildings depicted. So as I said, we move across the street now from the Magistrates Court. So we cross Scroll Street and we come to the famous Victoria Law Courts, the High Court as we call it now.
A very interesting building, because you would say that it was, in fact, your little caption there, correct. Baron van Sycamore was the guy who built it. Hatfield was the architect, and Cesar Castellani was also an architect as well. But he had a bigger say in the building than anybody else. People say that the Baron built it, but he didn't have anything to do with architecture, really.
Yeah, because I've just shown the two architectural styles here, where presumably we get the Castellani on the top, the wooden bit, and more concrete, perhaps the more medieval design at the bottom. So we get a complete contrast between two architects here. Is that correct? Would that be Joseph Hatfield's bottom part of it and then Castellani on the top?
In fact, I think Van Sycamore's strength was as a civil engineer, you know, because he built the seawall between Kitty and the groin.
Right.
So I think he had a very strong interest in that particular discipline. That's why he captured the ground floor of the building. Castellani did the first floor.
Right. I think it's altogether my favorite building still. And I still like to call it the Victoria Law Courts. It still rings a nice bell. So that's a very old photograph of it there, which gives you an idea of Georgetown as it was then, with notes the canal design, which you probably know quite a lot about as well.
Yes, indeed. In fact, that canal was built and was opened by 1909. And in fact, since then, we have not built one iota more of concrete drains. All the sluices from Water Street, in Water Street and High Street, from the Cocador up to High Street, are all concrete channels, every one of them. And when they reached here, they stopped. For some strange reason, no more concrete work was ever done, which is sad, really. It's come back to haunt us big time now. But talking a little bit more about the cathedral, about the law courts. Queen Victoria's statue was blown up, as you probably know, in 1954, after our constitution was suspended. And went back to London, was repaired and came back again. You see, she on the pedestal is 3 meters high. And then when they blew it up in 1954, they circumcised the pedestal, and now it's almost only 1 meter. Here she has been removed during the Barnum era to be sent to the back of the gardens. In fact, I'm very proud to tell you that I was responsible for reciting it in 1994. Back when Queen Elizabeth II was visiting, we had an interest in getting back to this right location. They took on the mantle and was able to achieve it.
Anyway, this takes you back to when the Jubilee statue was being unveiled, which contradicts to me when people say we want to get rid of Victoria. Here is the dawning crowd, standing here waiting for unveiling. So way back, it was 1894 when the Jubilee, when people gathered before, and this was a little etching which came, I think, from a London newspaper. So it just shows the crowd there all being very proud of the Queen Victoria statue then. Probably not now, but anyway, that's another story.
Yeah, that picture was the 4th of September, 1894. And the course itself was opened on our birthday, the 4th of May, 1887, 50 years on the crown.
Yeah, so just picking up now on some of the architecture.
Mm-hmm.
That's that gallery just overlooking
High Street.
Western Front. That's right. Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right.
And then that's more detail of Castellani's architecture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see.
It's such a combination of everything there, isn't it?
Uh-huh. In fact, they built another structure to the east of this particular property. And I'd like to give the architect, the engineer, a guy named Anandari. He was a civil engineer, but he made sure that the building that he put up imitated this building faithfully with respect to architectural details. You couldn't tell that that building was built just about 1998, 99, compared to this building was built in the 1800s. But the architecture follows faithfully kind of decoy you see there.
Yes, that's fine. It's a shame I haven't got a photograph of that here, but as you said, it's quite correct. I was quite surprised they kept so faithfully to the original design. Yeah.
And it just shows we have the will. We can do things if we have the will,
Yeah, of course, yeah. So this is just some of the interior of the building. Well, I think that's one of the courtrooms, and just the structure around the staircase. And you get these trefoils appearing everywhere, don't you? Even in the wooden work, and even on I think some of the fences as well, stonework on the palings, on the work outside the building. So they seem to appear everywhere in the architecture as well as in the grounds as well.
Some were quadrifoils, some were trefoils.
Yeah.
They seem to be very popular in the design at the time,
You have another.
Yeah, there's another ceiling that reflects Castellani's work.
That's right.
Building.
Yeah, I think that appears just in the main staircase, and this.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
The main staircase.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
So that's rather beautiful staircase because you've got the Victorian tiling, and then you've got all the ironwork coming down really.
Uh-huh.
As a matter of fact, every building we look at, we probably notice ironwork becomes a general theme. They seem to pick that up all the way through. So whereas one's more conscious of seeing ironwork associated with brick buildings, it's good to see in Georgetown where a lot of wooden buildings have actually incorporated the ironwork as well. And of course, it's interesting to know how this ironwork got there, where it came from, and the amount of skill and sort of artistry and decorative work that was put into efforts to make it. And of course, the ironwork is interesting in the sense that where the wood rots and the concrete sinks, the ironwork in Guyana never seems to have rusted somehow. It seems to maintain that quality. Whereas in some of the islands in the Caribbean, for example, where they've got ironwork, it tends to get rusted by the salt air. So it's nice to think that most of the ironwork in Georgetown has been preserved as it is.
And most of the ironwork is cast iron, which doesn't rust easily, Cast iron doesn't rust easily. And our environment, not like in the Caribbean, you have a lot of salt here. We're not exactly close to the ocean, I just love these old buildings, and the thought that so much of the stuff came in from Britain, especially wrought iron work, like the kissing bridges in the Botanic Gardens, and those bands that all came in from southern England and from Scotland.
Yeah. And in the case of this High Court, it's nice to think that people can just wander in from the road and walk around to some extent. And of course, how many people actually appreciate the building itself? They probably come and go, but for different reasons. But they never probably look around to see the detail in the architecture.
I think anybody visiting High Court probably have a matter of interest in the court, so they don't have time to think about that.
Indeed. Indeed, and those who go on cameras probably get prohibited by the security guards anyway. So. Okay, we move along now along Avenue of the Republic, and we come to the famous town hall, city hall as we well know it. Well, what more can one say? It's still the most beautiful building in Guyana and the whole of the Caribbean, but here we are. We're not quite sure what it looks like now to those of us who are not there, but you probably best know how to describe it.
Well, in fact, as the architect, his father scholars, he did a lot of the work. In fact, he did the ceiling for the Big Dam Cathedral, the one that burned down in March of 1913. And in fact, there's a ceiling, there's a hammer beam finisher, as they call it. He obviously was a structural man, you know, but I don't castly, and he had not much interest, had no interest in this particular building, I thought no input rather. But it was opened in July, the 1st of July, 1889. I often wonder what it could have been like that year, you know, because 1st of July, you have this building being opened, then you have the cornerstone being laid for St. George's Cathedral, and the next year you had the Demerara Mutual Building being opened. So, you know, it must have been fascinating to be a resident of the city and see all this action taking place.
Yes, one never really thinks, I mean, that must be quite exciting. I mean, I know buildings going up in Georgetown now, there's no great excitement because you probably see boxes going up surrounded by steel girders and glass. But I could just imagine what it was like in that time with the scaffolding being very higgledy-piggledy as it probably was. And these various bits of wooden architecture being put together. So it must have been quite an interesting period for those who were able to observe it and probably those who were able to write about it.
Exactly. In fact, I worked on this building as a young engineer, trying to make sure that we preserved it. In fact, the reason why it's still standing is because the tower is what literally tower strength, you know. It's a beautiful building. And in fact, they had some youngsters from out to the UK came, and they did a very detailed architectural perspective of the building. So we have the record to show. If we need to do any remedial work, we have records to show, you know. That picture shows the city engineers department, which house they. Okay, let's stay with that. This is the stage leading up to in the tower, in the city hall building itself. Looking for them a couple of years after.
Apologies. I'm trying to actually stop the video a second. Hold on. There we go. Okay, so we're going to pause there for the time being because we're kind of running over. The clip there with Wayne and Egbert is about an hour and 15 minutes long. So I think what I'm going to do first is to go to Khadijatou for her to do her performance so that I don't have her holding on. I have no idea how long the conversation on architecture is going to go on, so I don't want to keep her holding on indefinitely. And then once I've spoken to Khadijatou and she's done her performance, we can then go back and continue. I think what I'll do is just ask you get you to put questions to Bert about the architecture and the discussion he's been having there with Wayne. And then for those of you who are really interested, we can then keep the video going and you can carry on watching it at the end. But I'm just conscious that time is running on, so I don't want to keep people holding on who are sort of pressed for time. So yeah, I'm gonna start by introducing Khadijatou, and so let me just explain that she was raised. Somebody's saying no sound. Can everybody hear me? Everybody hear me okay? So yep, good, excellent. So Khadijatou was raised in Georgetown, Guyana, and recently celebrated 25 years as an international performing artist. She is a spoken word poet, singer-songwriter, and dance theatre choreographer who has predominantly worked with generations of younger performers in the townships of South Africa. The project that she's best known for is as a founder of Step Africa UK and being partner to the Tricontinental Festival that took place annually for a decade. And that was Step Africa International Cultural Arts Festival. On the back of performances in 2018, she was awarded an Arts Council and British Council Award to initiate new international intercultural possibilities in South America, and was invited to perform her music and poetry live with African djembe drum at the world-renowned Medellin International Poetry Festival in Colombia. She's going to be performing 2 spoken word poems, including 200 Years of Vex. And I'm gonna add in the chat section a link to where you can learn more about her career. But I'm also going to be adding as well PayPal details. As I said, I'm really keen that we support creative artists who, you know, obviously within the context of COVID, it's made earning a challenge. So if you enjoy her performance, please feel free to contribute. Yeah, so welcome. Khadi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. It's really great to see you. And thank you so, so much for joining us. We're really privileged to have you take time out to join us.
It's a pleasure.
Can I ask you a question? I mean, one of the things I was really interested in is that you've actually had a career as an international performing artist. And I always think it's phenomenally hard to earn a living in the arts anyway. I mean, if you were to talk to the younger generation, what would you advise them about how to make a career with spoken word poetry?
Well, I don't just do spoken word poetry. So I think the first thing I would say is diversify. You have to be interested in a number of different things. It helps to be interested in culture. For me, the arts, I came from dance. I came from as a choreographer, so arts, history of art. You know, so it goes way back. All this architecture, it's part of what I've been trained in as well. So I also graduated in language. So I did a BA in this is my trajectory. Just regular school in Guyana, school in London, went to work, civil service, left. You know, university, dance degree with Spanish. I didn't know Spanish was going to lead me to actually realizing, whoa, they're talking about Africa, the Caribbean, all these different countries around South America, Guyana, obviously one of them. So it sort of led me to think, well, we're talking about me as well. So this is a history that includes me. And I'm at university, and the things I learned sort of makes me think I should have learned these things at school. And so I go deeper, I go to the Caribbean, I go to different parts of Africa, West Africa, Senegal, Gambia, Gorée Island, where you find out, you know, that you go into the castle, the slave castles, and you find and you feel things. So there's a whole way of getting information of what you're going to write or what you're interested in. You know, Africa taught me how to dance the traditional indigenous dances after I left university doing the dance degree. So it's not just about writing. Writing came later, just like how for me, dance came much later. So there was a whole life before these things. So I would tell a young person to have a varied amount of interests and pursue them and to travel. And I know that COVID has really changed the trajectory, future forward thinking, how we go around the world. But as soon as I could, I got my birth certificate, passport, and left England. So I wanted to see what was out there. So Europe, I went all over Europe, trips everywhere. So, you know, learning about different people, being interested in people and not just, you know, if you go on a trip to Africa to see, yes, sea lions, see giraffes, because they are beautiful, wonderful, powerful, but meet people and to speak and to learn and to absorb, to analyze. So there's a lot of things that go into poetry. It's not just writing a bunch of words, although sometimes it can be. It can be to help people in different ways or just to put some beautiful words together. But mine is more about it addresses its sex, lies, and history. So relationship, sex in the wider context of that, what that means. And in fact, even in terms of history, it all interrelates, because you can look at any time in history and they all have an interrelationship, sex, lies, and history.
Interesting. I think what I'm getting from you is that you've followed your passions. So you've kind of done what you needed to do to get on. But I feel really like you've followed passions and the things that you love. And maybe that's how you've ended up carving this kind of career that seems really rich to me. I mean, I love the travel that you've done, and then being able to express yourself through your art. It just seems like you kind of followed a dream.
Yeah, there's only so much that you can do when you're dancing. When I was a choreographed dancer, only dancing, and not doing the poetry, spoken word, drum, and all these other things I do, I realized that I think I'm telling you a story, and some people are looking and understanding the story, and some people are just saying, "Oh, she's fit," and I didn't want that. So it's like, and also, I just realized I've got a short amount of time to on earth to speak and communicate, and maybe like my actual real purpose was pushing, and so the need to get to speaking quicker, and so I kind of pushed that forward. And thank you, David Alson, who sent £5 via PayPal, just to say that really, it's really interesting to just realize that you can say a lot within a short space of time, and you can still do the beautiful things of dance and, teach. Teaching is the one thing that I've found that I wanted to give back to people, because I just got the opportunity to travel. And in traveling to Soweto, to different parts of the Caribbean, to the inner parts of Colombia, where people are poor or wealthy, whichever part, whichever their background, the fact is they're seeing me, and they don't see too many people who get invited to international festivals looking like me. So it tells them I could do that. And it tells them, oh, if she could do that, I could get on a plane, I can do that. A lot of people over the last 20 odd years have now landed on world stages themselves. They found themselves on international stages, flying to China, Brazil, all over Europe, not even bothering to come here. And, they found themselves out of Soweto Township, for example. They're on world stages. They're on those West End shows that we go to watch. So they found that by being interested in their own culture, and by the fact that we were interested in them, they got interested in them even more so.
That's so interesting. I one of the things I'm really curious about is the what, in being born in Guyana, is there something about being born in Guyana that's led you to be interested in particular themes in your work? I mean, you're talking about sex, lies, and history, and it feels like that whole kind of experience of, or the legacies of colonialism, did that have a huge impact on the direction that your life has taken?
Yes, I had no idea what was going to happen to me in my entire life when I was a small girl in Guyana. I lived in a daydream. I didn't even, it's only now as an adult, now I'm actually realizing that when I was in Guyana, I was a traumatized little child that I didn't even know that she was. And I don't take back anything. I just lived, I was allowed to gallivant. I thank my Auntie Joyce, who passed away 3 weeks ago now, age 92 and a half, for raising me to be free, to gallivant, to go and walk and to see and feel. And I didn't fall into any deep holes. I listened to the adults when they said, careful, there's a hole in the park in the middle. So I'd go on the other side, and that would be like the funeral parlor and the funeral, what do you call it? So basically the grave, where the graves were. And for some reason I wasn't scared. And at a certain hour, I would feel an airiness come over me, and those angels started to chase me, and I would run out. And then I get to the gate just in time, they're closing the gate. You see? So I realized that some things that seem like nightmares are messages. And I feel good for that upbringing because it tells me that I'm spiritually guided, and sometimes my words are being used. I'm just like a conduit, a vessel through which messages come out, and that I get platforms on radio stations in different countries or television programs in different countries. They've asked me to talk about Walter Rodney in different countries, like in Guyana, which was, in South Africa. I think it was it Soweto Television? They have a DSTV, digital television, which goes across 5 continents. And it went out like 5 times a day, just that the reach is massive. Getting on radio equivalent to BBC and just speaking these words, being invited to Poetry Africa in Durban, but as part of that invitation, speaking this poetry in Malawi, in Zimbabwe, in Cape Town, in Johannesburg, in Durban for a week, it just has taught me that there's a bigger plan, and the messages go out. It's done before anyone can stop me from doing it. It's done, and it feels right that I'm starting from a place of the beginning. So can I start with something for you?
Please.
Just by way of just introducing myself, this is called I'm a Woman, A-M-A, woman. And Amma means so many different things. Thank you to Aubrey McWatt, who just sent £17. Thank you. There are people that it's coming up on my phone as you're sending it. Okay. Can you hear this?
Yeah, I can hear it, yeah.
It's just this. I'm playing it because if I actually play my drum, you wouldn't hear my voice. Okay.
What is the instrument called?
I bought this from Brazil when I was in Brazil one time. It's one of these things that you shake, but everything that was in here once came out. Oh. It had stones and things like that. When I was a little girl, I used to make things like this out of bottles and, put those beads that you used to get from the tree, the plants. Yeah. I used to make them. And so the Guyana taught me to be a percussionist and a drummer. This is called I'm a Woman. Right. I'm a Africa. My afro, hard hair, blonded, black skin, fired up and fiery kind of woman. I'm a strong head, long leg, firm and rounded butt kind of woman. I'm a big hands, strong grip, fine, wiring, hips moving kind of woman. I'm a bright eyes, long lash, full, fat lip, kiss kind of woman. I'm a firm feet building foundations. I'm a spiritual being for elevation. I'm a forwards thinking, positively vibrating kind of woman. I'm a soft slant eyes, sneak smiling, wide and cutely, just for you kind of woman. I'm a firm feet building foundation. I'm a spiritual being for elevation. I'm a soft slant, firm. I'm a strong, smooth backbone, smooth, strong thigh bone. I'm a highly motivated, left and right brain stimulated, ambidextrous, purposefully ambiguous, androgynous kind of woman. I'm a loud laughing, white skin teating, deeply appreciating and deeply feeling you kind of woman. I'm a hands clenched, blood pumping warrior. Don't vex me because I'm a cry for you kind of woman. I'm a make love with you and help us to continue, for I am my Africa's kind of woman. Thank you. That's just by way of introduction. I've kind of like cut that right down because I realized that we're running into time. Can I do another one for you, which is called Into the Jungle? Into the Jungle, everybody, is something that I realized that we weren't taught anything much about our history in any school. So I decided to write Into the Jungle after doing my degree, after doing a whole entire BA honours, into the jungle came some people then who started to mingle with the man them who lived in the jungle. You know, the trees then started to rumble in the jungle, in the jungle, in the jungle, in the jungle, in the jungle. Natives now begin to humble, mistake the man for a god in the jungle. Clouds get dark, make noise and start to rumble. In the jungle, in the jungle. The man now take out him Bible, and to the people then he throw down to jingle, make the man him friend, then him started to mingle. 9 months later makes a baby woman single. In the jungle. The jungle where people cared and loved each other as a people, never need to go into no building with no steeple, already knew the things that was good and what was evil. In the interim, some of them are dancing and catching up to rhythm, whilst the other ones them gone go digging, put up big fence, then them start with deep rigging, poison precious waters them had to stop drinking. In the jungle, in the jungle, in the jungle. In the jungle, natives realized the man was trouble, come to Brocky back with work and pay him no money, take him life with a gun and mess up him honey. Life was fickle, man would all knock out next man for a nickel, take your babies and sell them all off for money, with no regard for mommy, daddy or the family, didn't give a shit about your destiny. In the jungle, jungle. Ole, in the UK jungle, came my parents them who started to mingle. They hear a rave was happening, them hear it from a jingle, a pirate station, playing from a rooftop. A message tell the man that they lost out because they left their plots. Now their children have to stay here till them is old and rot in this here jungle. We concrete and car fumes, spill out raw pollution. Man have to work hard to get a few things like promotion. Twist up woman hand in the dance with some emotion. Young people are dying. Authorities have got our mothers and our fathers crying. Some of us still want to stop and disturb our lifestyles, to stop and demonstrate against it all the while. Black Lives Matter. Centuries later, the men them who went to the jungle, sending them grandchildren who are starting to grumble. When you ask them, they were sent by them uncle, saying that them themselves, them no want no trouble. Because in this jungle, the music that they play in here is jungle. Roots music and reggae is blasting, telling the people that our history will be lasting. In this jungle, no way out of the jungle, because we all live where?
In the jungle.
In the jungle. One big concrete jungle. In the jungle. One big concrete jungle. Thank you.
Fabulous. You'd mentioned as well before you were going to share like a clip online. Did you have a video that you were going to share?
Oh, we didn't just now talk about that, but there is a piece on YouTube. If you put in the letter 200 years of Vex, 200 years of Vex, V-E-X, 200 years of Vex. And you see how my name is spelled here? Yeah. You can put it on YouTube and put 200 years of Vex. You're going to see that. But I will actually do that for you. Should I do it for you now?
Well, what I wanted to do is show the recorded, because your spoken word performance is coming through really well. But then when you sing it, I think as soon as you move from the mic, the sound, we lose the sound. And I'm just conscious it's such a beautiful performance.
Thank you, John Charles David. You just sent £10. I really appreciate that. Oh my goodness, you guys are just amazing. Thank you. You know, yes, you can play that. I would appreciate that. Yeah. I can't do anything about the microphone. You see, this is the microphone, unfortunately, this thing here. Thank you for your messages of feedback. All right, so I mean,
you could perform that one, or perform it, but just be conscious if when you're facing the screen directly, we hear you great, and as soon as you move away, we don't.
I'll face the screen directly, no problem. But when I play this, can you hear it?
Yeah, we can hear it really well. Yeah.
This is just a seat. This is just.
I know, I love it.
Guyana taught me how to play the drums, you know, because you sitting there drumming on the veranda.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is called
Great.
200 Years of Vex. I always imagine an old lady in the Caribbean just like sitting there with her dress, you know, and washing clothes, you know. So, you know, and people think that she doesn't know what's going on, but she knows what's going on. Universal love shall reign. Help, tell me why some people want to play tricks with my mind. What I want, take my strength and turn fool with me kind. Them not happy if me live good and no want to see things fine. Come and smile like an angel till them devils side and whine. As you know me now, no idiot and no suffer fool kind. Take a foot off of me head if you want to see the sunshine. To say me vex is a real ratted understatement. And I do prefer the love that lives inside my heart. The truth revealed, big lies hidden on the carpet. What them not teach we poorest, cause of them enslavement. Them find Africa green and lush, but take superior or complex. Greedy tricks use chicks to rob and thief and kill off man. In Europe, sit down choosing parts for them expansion. In Europe, sit down choosing parts for them expansion. Africa never had crude borders as they now drawn, till Europe slice it up like a cake, choosing farmlands for them lawn. Cause one tribe to hate another, missionaries pushing their own religion. To this day, WMDs affects us like Katrina and Sandy stormy weather. Don't you know, in the end, universal law shall reign. The Holocaust happened first in Namibia, then Germany's African domain. It's so ugly they take out all our artifacts out of the books. Rewrote history so things look pretty till this history is lost. Only Black History Month flagging up some facts, but schools them falling short. Only Black History Month flagging up some facts, but the schools them falling short. Young people them hurt and isolated with no glorious past. Only colonial legacy of family breakdown is where society now pays the costs. Don't you see how rains fall harder now and man's cries get loud? You have to look for silver lining deep, 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 deep down inside dark cloud. And whilst the music plays and saves us, I chant and I sing these words. When our minds are fed the truth, we are freer than the birds. When our minds are fed the truth, then we are freer than the birds. When our minds are fed the truth, we are freer than the birds. Freer than birds, 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 freer than birds. But them not know, 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 them not know. Me said them not know that we are freer than birds, freer than birds, freer than birds, we're freer than the birds, birds. Birds.
Lovely. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. That's fantastic. And so yeah, we hope you're going to make it to Guyana at some point with a performance. That would be really nice. And
yes,
have you got?
That's actually it. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, have you got any plans for when lockdown is kind of over and we can travel again?
I don't know what is going to happen next after lockdown. Lockdown has been hard because it shut everything immediately. He said from 12 at midnight, nothing has reopened since, because my whole livelihood depends on an audience and people afterwards being able to buy something. For me, running workshops in dance, in choreography, there's been nothing like that. And before I was injured in any case. So, you know, it's been a bit strange, but I do love the fact that Cuba invited me to the literary festival that they have. And I wasn't able to go. That was just last year as well. So the COVID I would have been stranded in Cuba, basically. So they've invited me for the future. So I'm hoping that the Arts Council or somebody will actually, you know, bless me with that funding to enable me to get on with it. And I'm actually looking for a publisher. So, you know, I attended your 50th anniversary of, is it Hansard?
Yeah, Hansip Books.
Hansip Pub, yeah. So I'm hoping that either Hansip or one of the others will help me to have my collection publicized, because then the world of literary festivals are open to me, and that's another lot of travel. You travel with the book and you read from it. So far, I'm just traveling with it all in my head, and me and my drum, and doing workshops with the people. So I get a chance to meet real people at all levels, whether they're a queen. And, you know, believe in me, I've met many kings and many queens in Africa, but I love meeting the people in the townships, in the community halls, at all different levels, whether it's guesting at university to teach a choreography class or to recite poetry. So there's a plethora of opportunities going forward, but I just don't know what happens next.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
thank you so much.
Wish you all the best.
May I just say thank you? May I just say thank you to all those people? The names kept flashing up on the screen of all the people who have been donating today. Thank you so much. You've been so generous. It's amazing.
I have to say as well that you do have CDs. So I don't know if you want to show us your CDs. If anybody's interested in purchasing them, just let me know and I can give you Khadi's details. Sex, Lies and History. There it is.
I'm also on a couple of other people's albums. I'm on an album by Phil Dawson. I'm on an album by the Heliocentrics. I'm on an album by Danny Keane. These are all things that are out now. I'm amazed by how many projects I'm on.
Yeah,
amazing.
That's fantastic, and we're really very honored that you're here. You know, I love that you mentioned that you had an Auntie Joyce in Georgetown, because actually I'm looking at Auntie Joyce, my Auntie Joyce, Auntie Trotman. She's online and she's like 90. Auntie, how are you? 92 or 90? 90? No, she's not 94. Auntie Joyce, how old are you now? She's on mute. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. But anyway, she's kind of in the ballpark of 90 something. So
I know. I saw that Auntie Joyce and I was like, oh, Auntie Joyce. But I just remember my Auntie Joyce is gone.
Yeah, everybody has to have a beautiful Auntie Joyce.
I love my Auntie Joyce.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thank you so much. And I wish you all the best. And, you know, if there's any way that we can help promote your work, let us know. I'd really encourage everyone to go on YouTube, because I literally was like going through your material on YouTube, and it's fantastically, the performances are just brilliant. So yeah, I'll put some of those links onto the Guyana Speaks Facebook page so that people can see.
Juanita, thank you very much for inviting me on. As I'm speaking to you, names are coming up of people who are giving, thank you. I just can't even tell you the names that have just been flashing up one by the next. Thank you so much. I've actually enjoyed this platform. I enjoyed the Guyana visits. I cannot wait to visit Guyana after that. I cannot wait to be able to take a group of people, to go and visit Guyana, because there's something I'm doing called Gathering of Diaspora, and I'd love to be able to take the groups to places like
honestly, that. We've been discussing, we were actually planning a trip with the Guyana Speaks members, for some of the members, to go to Guyana, and then there was lockdown. So we can't wait for Guyana to open up again. And are you
going to do it? Are you going to do it again?
Well, we hope to do it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We probably won't be able to do it this year, because a lot of people are going to be financially strapped after everything we've gone through, but maybe next year. And definitely. And I feel re-inspired by Stacey's talk, because it's just, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know about that place. And the 7 curry tour, that's just like heaven. So yeah, I'm really, I can't wait. But yeah, thank you so much. And
thank you.
A real pleasure having you on.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And here for my husband and I sitting here, we're clapping away on behalf of everybody else. So I'm going to move back now to Bert. Bert, can you take yourself off mute? And we have so many questions and comments going on in here. I think Wayne should join in. And Wayne as well. Wayne, if you're there, please join in the conversation as well. Now, so I'm just going to go through some of the comments and questions that are in the chat. And then if people are interested in watching the rest of the video, we'll do that. But so the first question comes from Mr. Nasruddin, and it is there a movement to preserve these buildings? It will require skills and funds. Right now, all these buildings are rapidly deteriorating and invested with crime, bums and criminals. You know, so I guess a lot of people are interested in what's happening with City Hall. Is there anything to preserve City Hall?
Yes, in fact, only this week in the press, the central government voted $100 million to help with the repairs of City Hall. But the truth is, the fact, I don't think that money is anywhere near the amount of money that would be required. We just completed St. George's Cathedral and spent over $400 million, and we still have the roof to do. Anyway, $100 million will give us a start at City Hall.
It's a great start. I mean, it's unfortunate that they allowed it to kind of deteriorate to the extent it has. And I would just say to people, if you want to look at the video, there is that discussion on the extent to which it's been allowed to deteriorate. But I'm really, really happy to hear that. That's a fantastic start. And Adele has mentioned here, it's heartbreaking to see the state of City Hall in Georgetown. The last time I saw it, there was greenery growing from the first floor. And of course, it is really one of the most beautiful buildings. So yeah, we hope something happens with that. There's a message here too from Dingan. He says, as a young man, I spent a lot of time in the high courts. I hope it wasn't because he was always in trouble, but I suspect. And oh, the high courts. I have to say that this is the first time I've noticed these details of the building. And Errol is saying, designed in 1897 and opened in. Okay, so there's an issue with the timing. I don't know if the time was up on the slide, but when was it? When were the high courts actually built?
It was opened on the 4th of May, 1887.
1887. Okay.
It was 50 years on the throne, and then the next building was 1890, the ministerial building. But the statue was placed on the 4th of September, 1894. And when the Queen Victoria statue was placed with a large crowd in front.
So it's kind of done in stages.
Yeah, right.
I see.
I think
if there's a mistake in the dates, but 1887 when it was opened, 1897 when the statue was placed, and the magistrate building was opened in 1890.
I think it may be the City Hall information. City Hall was designed in 1887 by Scholes, and the actual building opened in 1889. I think I corrected that. That may be a mistake on the slide.
I see. Okay. So what did Roland was saying? Are these buildings held in government trust? I don't think so. Just generally the buildings, the older, I mean, is there a trust for the older architecture, you know, in the same way that they have in, I think the buildings in Suriname are kind of managed by the World Heritage Organization, is that right?
Yeah, well, we don't have that. We have our National Trust, which is a government-owned body. It's kind of autonomous, but they have to depend on central government for money. And you can imagine they're not very well financed. In fact, only 8 buildings in the whole of Georgetown and Guyana have been listed in the National Trust, even though 200 buildings have been proposed so far. Only 8 have really been approved. So you got about 192 other structures waiting to be approved. And that's quite a few years now.
I mean, the shocking thing is that Guyana's been on the World Heritage List, tentative list, for the last 20 years, and nothing's been done about it. And that including buildings which have since disappeared, like the Sacred Heart Church. I think nobody's doing anything about it. That's the sad part of it. It's been on the tentative list for 20 years and no action is being taken. The reports have been written and the buildings are deteriorating. Since then, City Hall is obviously in a very bad state. And the Sacred Heart was one of the buildings included in that set as well. That's gone. And so there we are. So somebody needs to do something about it. Because Suriname is the other comparison. They've been on the tentative list now for the last, 15, 20 years. And Guyana is a far more beautiful city than Paramaribo. Dutch buildings are quite spectacular, but they're not as sort of, the variety is just not there. So Guyana has this very special array of buildings, which can't be compared even with the ones that Suriname, beautiful as they are.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think I wonder if there needs to be more people need to be much more vocal about the preservation. I noticed that Saladin said that these buildings in Guyana today reflect our collective abandonment of Guyana and demonstrates our kind of social and political incompetence. And I wonder if there is a slight kind of apathy. I don't know, like as if nothing's ever going to be done anyway. So, but I certainly hope things will change. Also, just before we go on, Dingens obviously anticipated my cheekiness. So he's put here for the records, he spent his time in the courts because his parents are lawyers. not because he gets into trouble. So there's a message here as well from Chris Morrill. He says, when I visited in 2014, I thought the buildings were in generally good condition. And no high-rise modern buildings have cropped up close by like in other countries to kind of, I guess, sometimes they spoil the kind of vista. But he said the old wooden buildings and some of the faded statues in some ways add to the appeal, although of course maintenance in the long term is desired. I would just say to that, you need to sometimes go inside the buildings, because I thought that about City Hall, and then we went inside it, and honestly, the degree of deterioration was pretty bad. And then Brian says, is there any work going on in preserving the border cricket ground timber structures? And I know that wasn't part of the talk, but I just wonder, Bert, if you know anything about that?
Yeah, I can actually chip in a bit. Actually, the PP government moved the Cricket's empire from border up to National Stadium Providence. But the truth is, a lot of the stands that were in the border cricket ground have been dismantled and given away as sold to the public for other purposes. So only the pavilion is there, which is a beautiful structure in itself. I really hope they could maintain that. But our politics is our biggest disadvantage, because politics was influential in that particular decision. And much like City Hall, you see, in 1994, Hamilton Green was elected the mayor. I think he was of the wrong, I won't like to do the word ethnic, but wrong political flavor. So he didn't get much money, as far as I can see. Now we have a new government. We have the same government, but a different period. And I think they've taken shame out of the face and put their hand in the pocket. My point about this is this. The APNU government, I used to say, was very cultural. At Granger's the head, he was a student of history, he's a very bright man. But he didn't have a pocket, he had a dhoti. Whereas the PP, they're very agricultural. If you want to build a road from the farm to the market, they build before you say Shazam. But they didn't spend much time at City Hall. Anyway, it seems as though something will be done now. Because we do have the skills, you know. I mean, if you ever notice the Bishop's house, the Anglican Bishop's house in High Street, the beautiful structure is well maintained. Done by the same guys who did over the cathedral. I'm very grateful to say that I'm part of the cathedral rehab. I don't know if they'll ever have me part of the City Hall, but the truth is, I don't mind if I was asked, but I hope that somebody will come up with the money.
Thank you for that. I'm conscious I think I missed a question. I saw a message pop up while you were talking. Yes, that's right, by Roland Thomas. And he said, I guess he's interested in who actually built these structures. I mean, did they use the labor of the enslaved Africans to build them?
In fact, the City Hall was built by Sprostons and Company. The guy in charge was a guy named Luke Hill. And the architect, I'm just trying to remember the architect. Anyway, the land on which his erector was donated by George Forshaw. He was the mayor at the time. And he donated the land on which City Hall is built. But the truth is, I don't remember who the architect is anyway.
But Bert, I'm assuming the laborers would have been the enslaved Africans. I mean, they would have, they wouldn't have shipped in people from Europe or.
No, in
well,
fact, this
is very interesting, because Bolingbroke, writing in the 1820s, describes the buildings of Georgetown as being very expensive. He's saying the local Negro carpenters were more expensive than importing labor from Europe, which is very interesting, really. In other words, there were a core of people working in Georgetown, apparently in the mid-19th century, who had hold of the actual practical building, and they actually cornered the market. They were quite expensive in relation to importing literally European labor. That was his point of view anyway. So it's interesting to see, you know, when this question is whether the slaves built things or whether they're built on the slavery or whether they're built on the free labor. It's something which needs to really explore, I suppose.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's something that needs to be. I mean, it's fascinating just to hear that they were so talented and skilled that they were able to corner the market in that kind of a way, and charge that sort of money. But also, I wonder, did they not want to pay them that money? You know, like sometimes they given the kind of context of the history, maybe they would have preferred to bring in other people than to actually, you know, have these people be financially empowered, you know, because it's that kind of post-emancipation period where you think there's especially when you think the period of after indentureship where they didn't really want, you know, there's a sense historically that they didn't want the African community to become financially independent and successful in that kind of a way.
But we also remember that the Winkle slaves in Berbice, who were actually working as paid laborers as well. They weren't working they weren't offering their services for free. They were actually managed.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
So whether these were people coming in from other parts of Africa, like the Cameroons or Sierra Leone or other countries like that, they may have brought those skills in with them, but they're described as government servants, aren't they?
So what period is that, Wayne?
Well, you're really looking at that period of before, presumably after emancipation as well, but it's very roughly that period, because you know they've got the Winkle area in New Amsterdam.
Yes.
The area that had lots of artisans and people working there under, funnily enough, a Mr. McWatt and Andrew McWatt, who actually was in charge of the Winkle slaves there, but they were known as paid servants.
Yeah.
As such, so they must have been paid. So it's interesting. It's an interesting topic to.
Yeah.
These people came to Georgetown.
I sort of feel that whole the history of Berbice though is slightly, you know, we always talk about Guyana as a whole, and I actually think when you look at Essequibo and Demerara, their histories are sort of more similar. I mean, as opposed to Berbice, where I think after the Berbice Rebellion of 1763, I know that the Dutch had ameliorated some of the, you know, some of the laws in the position. Like the people in Berbice were supposed to have, many of you will have heard me mention this, but I just find it so fascinating that they were able to take their masters to court and things like that. So, you know, as a result of the rebellion and the Dutch trying to sort of mitigate a repeat of another rebellion. So, yeah.
If I could just mention, Stacey is still around. If I can mention to her, I think Berbice is very much neglected in tourism in Georgetown. As a matter of fact, the whole of the East Coast, we talk of spending 2 days in Guyana and getting Georgetown, getting bored. There's such a lot going on along the whole East Coast of Georgetown into Berbice now. That's a marvelous day trip for tourists going all the way up to Quarantino in one day. I think that really needs to be explored, you know, looking at all the villages all the way along the coastal line. So, Stacey, that's something for you to.
I think you also need to do a Middelhauser tour in New Amsterdam. In fact, there's so many brilliant cultural figures who come out of New Amsterdam and Berbice. There needs to be like a tour of.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I actually had this conversation last night. You know, when you're talking about city tours, it doesn't have to be Georgetown. You know, there's so many different places, and I absolutely agree. New Amsterdam, Berbice, there's so much culture and history and heritage there. Absolutely, I agree. We'll definitely bring that up in our meetings as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's the thing that a lot of makes tours really interesting. If you could kind of hang them on, you know, kind of bits of cultural history. Of
course, yeah, it makes it more. I think you'll connect with it more too when they understand the history behind it. So definitely, I agree. Absolutely. Thanks for the feedback, Wayne.
And the other thing, Guyana desperately needs a plantation museum, a museum incorporating the old sugar industry and taking plantations. When you go to Barbados and the other islands, they have plantation houses you can visit. And there's nothing in Guyana. And I think the candidate for this, of course, is East Lothian House. Okay, that's an idea where the Fraser family live. I keep saying to them, let's make that, and one could easily get there from Georgetown and make a plantation museum. And that house also has a history of a farmyard, and the old Fraser was a veterinary surgeon as well. So it'd make a fantastic architectural.
Absolutely.
So if David Fraser's listening, Don't let that house fall down.
Hello. Can you expand about the Fraser House?
Well, the Fraser House is a very iconic house along the Quarantine Road. It's become even more famous now because when to get to it before, you had to actually go to New Amsterdam and cut back. Now that you can actually cross across the river, you actually pass by. And there's this beautiful old 1920s villa sitting way back in the landscape, very mysterious looking place. It's a long red brick road. It's the sort of place where you're about to approach it, you think somebody's got a gun on you waiting to pick you off as you come through. But it's a house that's been derelict now. I think the National Trust mentioned it way back nearly 20 years ago as a house that should be protected. And of course, Fraser lives next door in a green concrete house, ironically. And this house has been allowed to virtually fall down, but nobody seems to be able to do anything about it. So it's become a spectacular ruin with, great description.
Okay.
Can I just put a question to Bert, actually? I wanted to ask Bert, if people do want to spend a day or two in Georgetown, cause I think you used to do the tours, right? Do you still do tours, or is anybody doing historical tours about the buildings there?
I don't think anybody formally does it. I did it a couple of times just for the fun of it, I started walking people down the pavement from one area to another and explaining the history behind the buildings. Yeah. But I did it out of no money or anything was involved. In fact, I hope any money collected might be donated to more house trust. But I just want to go back a bit to the building, like say the City Hall. People talk about slave labor. In fact, the only two buildings that were built during the period of slavery was St. Andrew's Court, which was opened in 1818, and the public building, which was finished in 1834. But the truth is, all the other buildings came long after slavery. So there's not much slave labor involved. In fact, when we were doing over the cathedral, flying buttresses were a very keen interest in mine, being a structural engineer, civil engineer. And what I saw the guys doing was using an adze to get some of the shapes out. Now you can't get some of those shapes, pass them through a machine. You could probably in Europe, but not in Guyana. And it's so refreshing to see this guy walking the adze as though he'd grown up using the damn thing, So we have the skills. We do have the skills to maintain these buildings. In fact, somebody asked about the maintenance of the rest of the buildings. I think they're all in good shape except City Hall. I mean, the Mutual building has been there since 1890, and the hand building has been there since 1875, and they're all in very, very good condition. Only City Hall, and City Hall suffered because of the politics.
Yes, just to interject and answer your question, Vanita, there is a company that does walk-in tours, property walk-in tours. We actually work with them as well. So they do the walk-in tour down from Kingston all the way down to St. George's Cathedral. So they usually stop in and do to all of the historical buildings along the way and give the history and that type thing. So there are tours that they do exist. Those type of historical walking tours.
Okay, that's good. That's really good to know.
I think the historical walks are fine, but the buildings look very pretty from the outside. How beautiful! But you must go inside the building.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
To be lived in most of, especially some of the older houses. I think what the Guyana government should do is to do what they more or less do in Britain and other countries. They have an open day when all these buildings are open to the public for a couple of hours, where people can actually go inside. And
yes.
Something that's really strongly recommended, because unless you go inside those buildings, you cannot appreciate the fact that they were designed for ventilation, for natural light, and everything.
Absolutely, yes. At present, I think they go inside of the Walter Rock Museum. They go into St. George's and Red House, but other than that, there's no inside tour.
Yeah.
I agree with you, though.
So I just wanted to add a question by Saladin, who said, what can be done by the diaspora to push for the preservation of the kind of tangible heritage, physical heritage? Is there anything that we can do to help kind of maybe put pressure on the government in some way, or?
Good question.
It's a good question. It's a good question. And I think it has to be a collective effort between the diaspora and the persons living here, because you guys would need the information as far as, is anything being done? Is there any program in place for any particular building? Is any fundraising being done? Is any place being funded? And how you guys can contribute to that. So it has to be a partnership effort between us who are living here and the stakeholders here, as well as you guys. That's my take on it.
Perhaps you should ask the churches to advise, because how come all the churches in Guyana have done so well? I mean, they haven't got very many rich congregations. St. George's has done a magnificent job, which no other government could do. All the other churches like St. Andrew's and the Scots Church and churches around Georgetown, they are nearly 200 years old and they haven't fallen down.
Correct.
Yet a government-owned building like the Ursuline Convent, which should never have been pulled down, it was on the government hands, and yet it became unsafe for people to go in and had to be pulled down. Yet the churches, every go there quite safely, and somehow they managed to maintain their old wooden structures. So there's some mismanagement somewhere here.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that. There's certainly that, because as you correctly said, St. George's Cathedral, lots of the other religious buildings are in great shape. So that is something I'll add to my list just to investigate a bit more on from my end.
Errol, if you're talking about Ursuline Convent, which is St. Rose's High School, this is on Camp Church Street, that also has been the subject of political / administrative bungling, because I worked with the St. Rose's Student Association, and it has been a horrendous effort and problem trying to get the building refurbished, even rebuilt after it's fallen, after it's been pulled down. It's been pulled down for about 3 years now, and it's still a massive big hole there where absolutely nothing has been done. It's an eyesore and an absolute shame, but nobody seems capable or willing to do anything about it. It's just another, it's just, this is Guyana, man.
Can I just make a comment to everybody? If please raise your hands if you just want to interject, because I just suddenly realized somebody's had their hand raised for a while. So I'm doing some bad moderation here. Somebody from Stena River Tours and Charters had their hand raised. If you still have a question, please interject.
Good day, everybody. I just want to make sure can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good, great, fine. I've been involved in tours and well aware of a lot of the things that you guys are speaking of.
Can we ask you, sorry to interject, can we ask you your name, and also, is it possible?
My name is Nigel Lynch. I apologize. I should have registered as Nigel Lynch.
And can you put your video on, or?
Oh, I can. It's not a problem.
It would be great to see you. We like to get familiar with everybody.
That's quite all right. So I'm quite aware of what is going on with regards to a lot of things that people are seeing in terms of the people abroad. What has happened is that we've lost a little bit of our culture in terms of preservation of history. Now, if you look at I think in 1946, there was a bombing of the Sun Chapman in the Demerara River. We currently have no
66.
Not 1946, I believe.
66.
Yeah, 56.
66.
Yes. 66.
66.
Okay. So there's nothing there to say that this is what occurred at a particular time. For that to happen, and if you look at what is going on in terms of the forts, let's say like Fort Island, the buildings in Georgetown that should be that holds a lot of history. Mr. Carter and you probably may not remember, we met at the airport some years ago. It's something that we spoke about. I think he was going abroad, but you have to change your culture. We've lost a lot in terms of our culture a long time ago, hence what you see today in terms of the dereliction of duties with regards to maintaining our history. Yes, there needs to be some degree of pressure or a proper structure in terms of the maintenance of history. That is something that should have been done a long time ago, but you have to have the will to do it. Stacy, on the other hand, is I do tours along the Demerara River, and I know that probably at the end of the year, there's going to be a lot of river traffic. but a lot of people do tours on the Essequibo River, where Fort Island is located. Basically, but they know nothing about the Demerara River or the harbor, not much about the harbor bridge, or a lot about the islands. Actually, there are 3 published islands in the Demerara River. The middle one being Borselem, and that's the first Dutch capital in the Demerara. But I am not sure that history is being taught in schools, all right? So a lot of what you're talking about is an issue for 2021. Yes, we recognize them, but we lost somewhere along the line or pathways to the preservation of history. Now, if you look, we're in 2021 now, and like you have this forum, you basically need to do what you call stopping the deterioration of what is left of our history, right? We are now trying to do a little bit. Stacy's doing a lot, a whole heap with regards to the promotion of Guyana, the tours that people have to offer. I personally am doing, sharing some knowledge in the quarantine and in Berbice with regards to what you can do with what you have. Sometimes what I found in my own, doing my own research, I'm not being paid for it, is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and a body in motion will remain in motion unless acted on by an outside force. And what I found is that from some of the places that I go to, when you ask or put something towards people, they were like, wait, you can do that? I had the same reaction when I started my tours from Timeri Docks to Linden. When I said I wanted to do that, they said, but wait, you could do that? I said, yeah, and I can go to the Harbor Bridge. I can take you there. The problem is people sometimes have a one-track mind in terms of how things can operate. This is the only way it can be done. And that is definitely not so. There are some people will take a particular pathway for a lengthy period of time and just would not try another route to see what direction it would lead you to. And you'd very well find that sometimes that other pathway is to more success, more savings, and a lot more efficiency. So I would say what needs to be done, and I support Stacy in a lot of the programs. I missed a program yesterday, is I wouldn't necessarily say put pressure on the government. I think we need to properly advise the government and say, look, this is what if this is what we have, this is what we had. And if we continue along this area, we're going to lose everything, all right? We're going to lose everything. So I think from that point of view, I think that's the direction we need to take with regards to the present administration. And it should have been taken a long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Nigel. Can I just ask you, do you know somebody called Ruth Ann?
That's my sister.
Oh, just checking. Ruth Ann Lynch, yeah, because I can see that Ruth is online. So thank you for your comments there. That was really good insights into what the situation is.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
No, you go ahead, Stacey. Go ahead.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Nigel and with everybody else, Wayne and Bert and yourself, Anita, all of the feedback that you have given here. And I think organizations like Visit Guyana as well, who are neutral, we're not government, we're not private sector in the sense that we own any building. I think the feedback, we sort of act as a go-between where forums like yours are so important because now we're getting the feedback from your perspective. Sometimes when we live here, we see things and we become blind to it, right? For want of a better phrase. So I think forums like this help us to take these notes and feedback from tour operators like Nigel, as well as persons like Bert and Wayne, and we can take this information now and try our best to feed it to the powers that be who can put this pressure. So as I said, as I mentioned before, I do think it's a collective effort and it's not too late. It's too late for some buildings, but certainly taking all of this now, I will definitely do my part more to push why this is so valuable for the next generation. I mean, it is critical that we do something. So absolutely, I'm just taking it all in, and I'll do my best, and I'll give you my feedback based on the outcomes.
And if there's any way that we can help, do let us know.
Absolutely.
You know, I see, Wayne, you had your hand up, and I just realized that we have a historian on this Zoom, David Alston, and he's made the comment, and I don't want us to miss this. He says that the Winkle slaves belonged to the crown, and that they were paid. They weren't paid, but they were hired out. And I just thought it was important to kind of clarify that. Wayne, what did you have to say? You wanted to add something?
Following up on Stena's comments, actually.
Thank you.
From my visits to Ghana, my impression basically is that the cultural stakeholders are already institutionally there. There's the National Trust, there's the University of Guyana, there's the museum, there's the library, there are other institutions, like archives, for example. But the problem is these institutions are kowtowed by the government. They haven't got the freedom to actually express themselves. I mean, when you speak to the directors of these institutions, they can't do things because the minister has to approve. And the other reason is, I think a lot of these institutions, if they were strong enough, they would actually get national funding of their own. But the National Trust, if anybody's there, I think they really let Guyana down because they don't put their foot down and say what they mean. They're the actual forum that should be controlling this thing in legislation, because after they're a government department, they're through legislation. But things just fall by the wayside. So the institutions are there, but they just haven't got any teeth. And I think the problem is that they're still under the government direction. They're not independent. They're not the bodies that should have their own trusts to look after them and not be dependent on government funds. So that's my impression, what's happening. So it's not that the people on institutions are not there. It's just that people are depending on the government to bail them out. And then people are saying, oh, the oil money. Forget the oil money. That's the panacea that's not going to help Guyana at all, really. Forget about the oil money when it comes to bailing out for the cultural side of Guyana. But so I think it's just a continuous dialogue, really, to make people aware of what's going on. So.
Thanks for that, Wayne. Is there no way that those buildings can be kind of put into the public domain rather than being something that's under the government oversight?
They're things.
Auntie Joyce?
Huh?
I said we can hear you.
No, I'm just listening because I've been away for so long.
Oh, Auntie Joyce, you wanna sing us a song?
Pardon?
The agents after them should have some teeth to be able to do something.
Errol, hold on one second.
No,
I always love when Auntie Joyce is on because we've got 92 years of knowledge and wealth going on.
But where the architecture is concerned, I know that a lot of those places ought to be preserved, because as a little girl walking from Paku Dam right across Georgetown, through Brick Dam, through Kingston, because I went to Kingston Methodist School, I could see I didn't know the term architecture in those days. Didn't know the word, but I used to look at these beautiful houses. And all I'm trying to say is that a lot of them ought to have been preserved. But I don't think we realized how important they were. I just used to admire them. But if you walk the whole of Brick Dam used to be a beautiful. I used to like to walk along Brick Dam for all those beautiful big white houses. They were all white. I don't know if anybody remembers that. I don't think that you will.
I hope you've got some photographs.
And not only that, if you walk along, what I missed and what I thought was the worst thing that could have happened was when they filled up all the canals. East Street, Church Street, and it became Merriman's Mall, and all the canals that were there. I think something went when they were filled in.
Church Street and North Road canals are still very much there.
Pardon?
The Church Street and North Road canals are still very much there. Merriman's Mall is the strip of land between those canals.
Yeah, but somehow or other we don't make as much as we could about them somehow. And then walking along Hatfield, I was surprised when you heard about Hatfield, because Hatfield Street used to have eucalyptus trees all along. We played under those trees, but they're not there anymore. So I don't think you can come back to me to ask anything, because it's been such a long time ago, and change has happened. I used to like to look at the cannonball tree. Everybody knows about that cannonball tree on the way to Queen's College building. I don't think it's still there, but we looked forward to it. There were trees that had little blue bells, little fruit like were blue. I used to collect them and take them to school for the children. They're not there anymore. So I don't think I'm one person for you to come to ask about that now, because it's different.
Yeah, but Auntie Joyce, what you were saying, you walked, and that's the main thing. You walked.
I walked, yes. Nobody thought that an 8-year-old needed a bicycle. Nobody considered the fact that I was only 8 years of old, that I had to walk from S. Ben Street to Workmanville, and you came a lot Louisa Row, across Brummel Place, into Brick Dam. You took the whole of Brick Dam to Camp Street, and then you held Camp Street right along up to Lamaha Street, where the Coker was there. I still have a picture of the Coker. And then you continue that to Eve Leary Barracks, left into Barrack Street, past Parade Street, past where your family used to be, Wayne, I forgot that name of the street, right? And there was Kingston Methodist Church on the one end, and then the Bishop's Palace on the other side of High Street. And if you walked along the whole of Lamaha Street, from Lamaha Street back to High, all those big white houses, this is where the wealthy people lived in.
Yes, and you walked, and people in Georgetown don't walk.
Yeah, well, we had to walk because there weren't no buses. There weren't any buses.
Yeah, but people don't walk in Georgetown. The only way to know your built environment is to walk through it, because you see what's going up, what's coming.
You walk and you see.
I mean, architecture.
The one, if you walked along Lamaha Street, you used to look Lamaha Street from Cam Street right onto the end, going to Irving Street. Beautiful houses along there, but then you would have the big house in front and then all the tenements behind. And then you see my little friend would be emerging on the way. There was a little girl that when we got to Camp Street, it's a big white house in the front, but her family lived in the tenements behind, and she'd be emerging from this tenement to join us on Main Street, Camp Street, to catch Eve Leary. So the whole of Kingston, 50 Main Street at the corner of Lamaha and Main Street. And that Main Street Avenue, beautiful. When you get a Camp Street Avenue with the, what are the trees? The bougainvillea trees, not the bougainvilleas.
Flamboyant?
Flamboyant, yes. The flamboyant. You couldn't, we didn't know that it was so idyllic. But it was. When you look back on it, yeah. If you took Young Street, I would be at the end of Battery Road, all along Young Street, and all of that way you were walking among the bougainvillea property. It was like a canopy. It's gone.
Joyce, what I will say here is I heard what you said, and in relation to, I'll bring this back to Mr. Carter again, with the interjection of yourself and a lot of the people who have lived the era of yesteryear. People like myself who, at my age, we don't necessarily know what existed back then. So your ability to recollect history and what used to be done in yesteryear is very good for us. Yeah. There are not many people my age, and I'm in my 40s now, so I kind of started talking like an old man. But at the end of the day, when I say an old man, I like to listen to people who have lived it. There are not a lot of people I have found within the recent times. I would say between the ages of 25 to 32, thereabouts, or even 35, that are really interested in history as it existed before. So having said that, what has happened over a period of time is that a gap opened up where people have no interest in what we have, how we can preserve it and take it along the way. And it's very good that we have this particular program.
We sang about Georgetown being the Garden City. I couldn't remember the whole lot because I think I was going to board a Roman Catholic school. And we were singing something like, in a land of glorious sunshine where the gentle breezes blow. And I don't remember the rest of it. We used to sing, Georgetown, a garden city, with reverence and with fear. As citizens, we celebrate your centenary this year. But we sang, but we didn't know. They taught us in school, but I used to love to say that we were a garden city because you had the big botanical gardens but then you had that lovely promenade gardens. I used to love because going home from school then, I'd get to Lamahorse Street, get onto Waterloo Street, and sort of take a diagonal route through the promenade gardens and emerge onto, what would that road now? Would be Camp Street? Yes. Going to the Christchurch School on camp, yes. And there was a big ackee tree at the exit of the promenade gardens. And there used to be some little insects we called millipedes. They'd be put, and as soon as you touch them, they curled up. And we used to look for them to touch them and watch them curl up and then go. You know? This was the promenade gardens were beautiful because this is where all the white people or the wealthy Portuguese, you will see the black nannies with the params, with the little white children of the wealthy Portuguese. That's where they took the children. When a nanny took you out, that's where you did the children. And we would look at these black nannies with these little white children, pale-skinned children, in the promenade gardens where they used to go, or if they lived in the other part, they would go to botanic gardens.
Auntie Joyce, thanks for sharing your memories there. I just wanted to, I really appreciate it, and don't go anywhere because I'd like you to carry on contributing. But I wondered if Bert is still online. Can you say anything about the restoration of palms?
Restoration of palms?
Yes.
That used to be the alms house?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
it?
Yeah, in fact, that's a very sad story for me because in one of Castellani's buildings, there was a lot of deteriorating again. And in fact, I often wondered because it's such a beautiful structure, 3 stories, and only the indigent were allowed to live there, you know. Next thing you know, the building started to deteriorate and nobody ever did anything about it. But much like the New Amsterdam Hospital, which is also designed by Castellani, that was allowed to deteriorate. No evidence of it. Is there everything gone? I don't know, man. Something wrong with our people, our politicians, not the people, politicians.
Sorry, what is gone? The New Amsterdam Hospital? That's gone, yeah. It's
That's
gone?
Right.
Oh, wow.
More than about 10 years now.
Wow, that's.
It's been replaced with.
They've replaced it with a modern building, then I guess.
No, the site is still vacant, but they built a new hospital outside of Kanji.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Is the Mahaika Hospital still there?
Yeah, but it's not very much utilized. It's still there. In fact, they're thinking about using it for a different project now. I think they want to use it for host people who are homeless. It shouldn't be a bad idea. A lot of homeless people in Georgetown right now.
What happened to all these big estate houses? You have a big house on the estate. What's happened to those?
Well, in fact, those estates, they closed down a few estates of late. And one of the buildings in particular, one on Skeldon, they made it into a kind of resort. But now the Skeldon estate is about to be reopened. I phoned them and they said they're no longer doing the resort business. The manager will go and live there. All we're doing is digging holes for holes, you know. Bit of a shame.
It's a real shame.
Georgetown Garden, it really was a garden city. I'm not know if it still is.
It isn't. In fact, I'm looking at a book by Radu on page 238. It talks about all the different streets and the name of the plants, name of the street, the trees that were planted in each. Very, very interesting thing. Every street, Michael Street, Camp Street, all the streets had different plants. And it's all documented in this book.
I just wanted to mention, actually, since we're talking about the architecture, if you haven't got a copy of this this book, it's really worth. It's expensive, but I know Auntie Joyce will have it. Auntie Joyce, but it's the
This is my childhood.
Right, the City of Wooden Houses. This is by Compton Davis. So yeah, just Google it online. I'm sure you'll still find it available for sale.
By the way, the photograph on that house, please, anybody who's in Georgetown, go and have a look at it. It's actually in Brick Dam opposite the Palms, and it's been falling down for the last 10 years. And tell us when it's actually been falling down, because it's all overgrown with vines now. And it's become a beautiful relic, very iconic relic of Georgetown. It's on the cover of that thing, which has preserved it as much as it can, but it's no longer there. It's gone almost to pot.
I wanted to ask, is David Alston still online? Because I wondered if David knew anything about the Scottish buildings in Georgetown. Is David still there? Let me just see. No, I think he's gone. Oh, that's a pity. Yeah, I was gonna ask him because he knows a lot about the Scottish. Can I just ask quickly, shall we watch the rest of the video? Is everybody interested in watching the rest of it? I have to say I have put it on YouTube as well, and it will be available on Facebook. So I don't know if people want to watch it now, or shall we just carry on the discussion? I think just carry on the discussion.
Yeah, because they could always watch.
Just let me take my leave of you guys. Oh. My kiddos are battling for my attention. So I just want to thank you, Juanita, so much for having me. It was a pleasure. And everybody else who spoke and presented, I really enjoyed your presentations and I learned so much. I'm looking forward to keeping in touch with all of you. So thank you again for hosting. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you so much, Stacey. And maybe in the future, we'll be able to have you on with Nigel as well. Nigel, if you're up for it, let us know. We'd love to have you on Guyana Speaks as well. Maybe we could do a whole program on tourism.
Of course, that would be wonderful. Anytime, reach out anytime.
Okay, nice seeing you, Stacey. I'm sorry I missed the program yesterday, but I think I made up for it today.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, and it was lovely meeting everybody as well. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye, Juanita.
You too, Stacey. Thank you so much. All right, bye-bye.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Also, Khadijatou, are you still online?
Yeah, I'm very interested.
Are you enjoying it? Good.
Absolutely. What Auntie Joyce said there, and what someone just said as well about the almshouses, it's just clicking memories, because I remember walking there. I used to be one of those walking people. I walked everywhere. So when you're talking and you're going into details, things are like, but memories are just coming into my mind. And I remember the story of the almshouse. So yeah, keep talking. I'm listening. I'm learning. I'm remembering. Thank you.
Fantastic. Does anybody else want to come in? I think Aubrey.
Yeah.
Aubrey, come in. Thank you.
Well, a couple of comments. First of all, Auntie Joyce, I am 16 years behind you, and you just mentioned you lived at Espen Street. I lived at Espen Street,
yes.
And you might remember I lived with my great grandmother when my parents had to go to England, and so I was there when you were 8. I was living with her while they were.
When did you live in Espen Street?
I lived in Espen Street from 1950 to 54.
I left Espen Street such a long time ago. I left Espen Street and then went to Paku Dam Espen Street.
Yeah, but the point I wanted to make was that I rode along by that time we had bicycles, but I rode along all the Brick Dam and have all the memories of what you
in my day
what you spoke about, and I felt the need to record the experience of growing up in Guyana and marry that with all of the main social and political events that happen, the accurate social and political events that happen. So I published my book on that earlier last year, and it does cover a lot of the memories and the places and the things and the dams and you know how the trenches were
the boys used to play in the Princess. The little boys used to make their little boats
in the Princess Street
with the propeller in the Princess Street trench.
Yeah, because we
and then
lived
you
there.
went in the cemetery. You went in the cemetery to get hassa and think they're going to pond and you pull a whole net of hassa.
Absolutely, we lived above Bento's Bakery at one point before moving.
Bento's Bakery
at Luis Row, and then of course just walk
and then
across
at the corner of Bent and Louisa Row, you had Braffett Drugstore one side and Verscure Bakery the other side.
Right. Yeah, I lived there above the bakery for a few years. And so that's one point I want to make. I felt it was important to talk about the, you know, what it was like to grow up during the 20 years prior to independence. Which was referred to by.
And when you turned into Louisa Row was the road that led to the cemetery.
Yes,
and
of course.
Most funerals took that route, and when the funeral was passing, everybody stopped, and the men would take off their hats in respect of the dead until it went past.
Absolutely, and actually, in the Enmore tragedy in 1948, I was only about 5 years old, but I remember going into the cemetery because they walked all the way from Enmore, and Jagan led the march over 2 hours of the five indentured laborers who were killed in that tragedy, and then they took them straight to the cemetery, and I was there. So anyway, but that's one point. And so there is a recording of the history, but I was thinking in terms of the, you know, marrying the three presentations today, and a few thoughts occurred to me, you know, in tours in other countries in Europe and wherever, there are recordings of the history of the country, the places, the historical events, the social events that were important in that time and in that era. And I'm wondering if that is something or could be incorporated as a way to teach not only locals who take the trip up the Demerara River, for example. And I want to correct one thing. The Sun Chapman was blown up on the 6th of July in 1964, not 66. So that, and then the Abrams house right after that, you know, all the tragedy of the Abrams family and so on.
See, there's another aspect that we forgot, that in that Wortmanville area, the groceries, inverted commas, were run by the Chinese.
Yes.
You had Sue at the end of Hardina Street, and then you went the other one by Durban Street, and then when you got into Lodge, there was one at the end of Lodge, and they were run by Chinese.
Yes.
Well, so it was really cosmopolitan.
Yes, of course.
And so if you went to when we were little, and you went to the shop, and you bought a pound of flour, and you say, "A place for a little bit of eating soda," and he'll give you a twist with eating soda. And you went to when you bought your piece of cuts, your saltfish, you said, "A place for a little onion," and he would give you a little onion.
Right.
So you can go and cook your fish.
Yeah.
And if you went to the bakery, you bought a cent 2% bread, a cent 2% bread. So you get two whole loaves for a cent, or 3 for penny. So you get a little loaf here, a little loaf here, and you pay a 3 for penny. So you get a whole bread, even though it was cheap.
Yeah, lunch money was a penny or 3 cents for a small lemonade. tennis roll and some cheese.
2% and 3 pennies.
I know everybody's enjoying your conversation.
Yeah,
Can I
but
just
the
check?
point, let me just finish. So I was thinking that in tourism, to marry culture and art and history, I'm wondering if one of the tours couldn't be, you know, a stop somewhere where you actually look at performance art, the kind of stuff that you know.
Yeah, because this is what
earlier today,
my friend.
as a part of a tour where you marry that history, you tell the history, you show it in a performance piece, and you know, pull the three pieces together. What we're talking about, have it in a historic, have it in a cultural historic site.
I mean, I would love to do a tour of Georgetown, end up at City Hall, and then have Caddy singing to us at the end of that.
Right.
That kind of thing would be great, right?
I want Auntie Joyce to be there, and I want Aubrey to be there, because you know, when you're talking, you're igniting like so many brain memories of those places. I know I've been to some of these places that you're talking about. I completely get it. I was just this little girl, so I don't know the names of things, but when you're describing things, I know I've been there. You know, I felt there. And the crematorium, I've been there. That was the one I played in. That's the one I was just telling you about when I was telling you the story of when I ran out.
Yeah, and I just want to say publicly, I know Anita's got the whole program, but your passion and you are art. You are all of art.
Thank you.
All of art. And I think your passion and your message comes through so clearly to me, because you know, I'm involved in different.
Very clear.
Yes, excellent. And at one point, I mean, I'm a kind of a wuss, but at one point, I was on the verge of tears, because it's so powerful. It's so powerful what you do, you know.
Thank you so much. I feel moved by that. And thank you for your generosity. This group has been amazingly kind to me. Thank you, each and every one. If I was to call names, many of you have already left the forum, but thank you so much.
I'm so
glad.
Thank
you, Anita. Thank you, Anita and Rod, for this afternoon.
Auntie Joyce. Listen, I just want to check quickly. Does anybody else want to come into the conversation? I'm gonna stop the recording. So yeah, officially I'm stopping the recording now. If anybody just wants to